Very likely. I see that those people are not to be trifled with. They didn't hold back in any way, and killed them all. The spectators began to whisper among themselves, glad they had not left early. Otherwise, they would have missed this good show. The guards cleared a path. A man garbed in splendid finery and bearing a fairy-like appearance emerged, and declared solemnly, "You dare to disregard the regulations of the trade alliance and fight each other here in private. You are really bold." Angia glanced at the man, twisted her head, and swung her fist towards the falling flower fairy. Chiral gasped inwardly, thinking that this punch alone could kill. Instantaneously, he unsheathed the long sword around his waist, leaving a ghost image in his wake. His real body had already rushed in front of Angia, thrusting his sword forward. Clang! Chiral's sword collided with Angia's tiger's claw, setting off a sound of clashing metals. The flower fairy seized the opportunity and ran into the ranks of the Trade Alliance guards, taking shelter behind Chiral. At this point, the flower fairy was dripping blood all over, especially from the iron whip. A blood trail was left on his back, a sight of utter horror. Seeing that the other party had escaped, Angia silently returned to Fang Hao's side. "He should be a hero, slightly stronger than me." Angia leaned towards Fang Hao and whispered. Fang Hao nodded. Shadow Crown Sword Chiral Purple Rank 5 hero. As Chiral approached, Fang Hao had already scanned his attributes. A hero of the purple rank was among the upper echelon in this region. Chiral's face was serious as he cautiously eyed the people in front of him. He was certain that the orc girl and the lizardman were both heroes. As for those two humans, they didn't appear to be heroes, but he couldn't be sure either. He had already been stationed at the Trade Alliance for 5 years. He had met many heroes of different powers. Yet, the few people in front of him were completely unfamiliar, and he could not even identify their powers. But as the commander, he couldn't just let his fellow beings die in vain. Who are you to dare to kill people in the Trade Alliance's territory? You are really bold. Aren't you afraid that the Trade Alliance will hold your power responsible? All along, Chiral had been shielding the flower fairy while pointing his spear at Fang Hao. The bias was very obvious. Fang Hao looked at him indifferently and said, "If you ask the flower fairy behind you, you will know that we were only defending ourselves." The surrounding crowd was also discussing. In fact, from their respective positions, Fang Hao's group were heading to the teleportation array while the deceased fairies were from all around. Not far away, someone bold enough provoked from the crowd, shouting that they can't shield their own kind. This made the city defense commander Chiral's face becoming not so good-looking. Their fairy tribe was already small in numbers, and so many people had died this time. If he really let these people go, he would lose face in his own group, but the matters must be resolved in a way that leaves no flaws. Hell, Chiral sneered, who was right and who was wrong, the Trade Alliance will naturally investigate. Now you all put down your weapons and come with me. What a joke! If we go with you, we will die even worse. Fang Hao's expression also cooled. This place is no saint land. If we go with them, it's like courting death. Besides, the items that I bought are being robbed, and now I am being accused. Agony was suppressed in his heart. If you don't leave, not only will you die, but the powers behind you will also be implicated. Chiral gripped his sword tighter, his voice growing colder. I'm giving you one last chance. Just you? Giving me a chance? Fang Hao sneered. A cold light flashed in Chiral's eyes as he transformed into a phantom, and instantly appeared in front of Fang Hao. The tip of his sword pointed straight at Fang Hao's forehead. But just as he thrust the sword, Chiral suddenly felt a terrifying presence beside him. This aura was bone-chilling, dread-inspiring, as if the gate of the abyss had opened and a demon was looking at him with interest through it. Chiral hastily cast a sidelong glance, and saw the crimson eyes of another human under his hood. At this moment he felt as if time had frozen. The hooded human extended a slender, pale finger and flicked it at his forehead. Bang! Chiral instantly felt as if he had been struck by a heavy blow, and his body flew back like a shot cannonball. He flew out tens of meters before barely stopping. At this time, Chiral, where was his dashing look? His hair was disheveled, blood trickling from his forehead, his upper body was dyed red with blood. But it looked like he was not affected at all. Shaking unsteadily, he got up, wobbling on his feet. Rolana was not only proficient in black magic, but her weapon of choice in battle was a red two-handed sword. This finger flick almost killed Chiral. You are a gold-class powerhouse. The Trade Alliance does not want to be your enemy. This time please let us go in light of our minor errors. Chiral's face turned pale, a chill running down his spine. He was a purple hero, and even when faced with an orange hero, he wouldn't be defeated by a single finger. He could be sure that the other party had already reached the dark gold rank or even higher. Why would such a person appear here? And why did he happen to encounter him? If they wished, they could kill everyone here. At that time, the Trade Alliance would only arrange for someone to come over and mediate. They would not go to war with a dark gold hero because of them. Now, what he can do is to try and calm down this matter as much as he can. Rolana remained silent, but her eyes fell on Fang Hao. Fang Hao said, "Why do you think an apology would be useful? You didn't have this attitude before." The moment Chiral initiated the fight, the negotiation had turned into a battle. It's a contest of strength, and now our side holds the advantage. Of course, we won't let them off lightly. This situation Chiral wished to continue justifying. At that moment, a sharp voice came from the crowd's rear. "Ladies and gentlemen, I will report this incident to the Trade Alliance headquarters. Appropriate punishment will be meted out to the Fairy Clan and Chiral." A goblin dressed in purple, gold-trimmed robe stepped forward, accompanied by 2 other goblins and several guards. Fang Hao recognized one of the goblins. It was Moru, the talkative goblin staff member. Moru stayed silent, dutifully standing behind the lead goblin. Quote 15. Fang Hao looked at this person. "I am the person in charge of premises 032, Cucatter, and I assure you." The goblin spoke. "Your assurance is useless to me. It seems more like you're covering for them." Fang Hao continued. The goblin paused, thought for a moment, then sincerely said, "As compensation for the previous events, the Trade Alliance will waive the charges for the goods you purchased at the auction today. Furthermore, your status will be promoted from an ordinary member to a gold member. Of course, this does not affect the pursuit of responsibility for Chiral's misuse of power." After the events accumulated up to this point, premises 032 was facing extreme embarrassment. Not only did they block a Trade Alliance member, but they also lost the fight, forcing them to compensate. Hearing what the goblin had said, Fang Hao's rage dissipated significantly. This time, the purchased visceral jar and tears of a sha combined cost about 15 million warfire coins. This was not a small sum. Even the total income of Lis City may not have reached this amount. This 15 million had also drained all of Fang Hao's reserves, leaving him with only tens of thousands of warfire coins. Now that they were willing to waive his fees while the goods remained his own and the money was returned naturally, that was good news. After a moment of silence, Fang Hao agreed. "All right, pay me now, and within a week. I want to know how your headquarters will handle this incident." Since he still relied on the platform of the Trade Alliance, he decided to quit while he was ahead. "I can promise you that." After the goblin spoke, he gave a few instructions to the goblins behind him. Soon someone brought a bundle. Upon opening it, he found neatly arranged warfire cards. The total amount was 15.05 million. Fang Hao fastened the bag, holding it in his hand. In this world, it's still a matter of the survival of the fittest. If Rolana hadn't displayed her dark gold level strength this time, the Trade Alliance would have found various excuses. No matter how justified one is, without strength, it's useless. In the end, one must possess power. With the issue resolved, Fang Hao didn't plan on prolonging his stay. He glanced at the goblin and few people, then led his group towards the direction of the teleportation array. Trade Alliance individuals watched as Fang Hao and his party left, sighing slightly. Chiral, clutching his wound, approached feeling guilty. "Lord Cucatter, I've caused trouble for the Trade Alliance." "Chiral, I'll report the truth to the headquarters. Don't blame me, I'm also doing this to protect you and the Flower Demon." The goblin in the splendid robe spoke. "I know," Chiral responded. The goblin continued, "Effective immediately, Chiral is dismissed from his leadership position and will be detained along with the Flower Demon." The guards acted, detaining both of them. By the time they returned to their territory, it was already quite late. Fang Hao was in a good mood after this auction. He hadn't spent a dime, yet he had gained an orange visceral jar and the tears of a sha. If he had known the Trade Alliance would pick up the tab, he would have purchased more at the auction, regardless of whether they were useful or not. "Arrange a room for me. I won't be returning today," Rolana announced. "Sure, I'll create a private residence for you. You'll have more freedom there." "I accept." On this trip to the auction, Fang Hao had significantly noticed a change in Rolana. She had actually had some interaction with Angia. She asked some questions about goblin technology and gave detailed responses. Especially in combat, She not only actively reminded him that the flower demon had released pollen, but also asked him how to handle the situation after defeating Shirel. In the past, Rolana would never do something like this. Her previous style tended to let loose her anger, but now she clearly wants to interact with others and take care of their feelings. This surprised Fang Hao, and also made him think of ways to maintain this change. He wanted Rolana to blend into the group more willingly. Now, Rolana wanted her own place to live, and Fang Hao wouldn't refuse. There was plenty of space in the city, and it was no problem to give Rolana a place to live. What about building it here? Fang Hao pointed to the open space in front of him. This was on the left side of the Lord's Manor, separated by a main road, but it could still be considered a central location within the city. That's fine, Rolana simply stated. Fang Hao directly opened the Book of Lords and found the blueprint for the residential building. He chose to build on the vacant space in front of him. A radiant sword and a wooden house was constructed. After upgrading the residence to level 9, it had already become a 3-story stone tower with separate courtyards in the front and back. There are finished chandeliers and furniture in the warehouse. You can select what you like, and then have the skeleton soldiers move them here, Fang Hao softly said. Okay. Rolana gave a little nod, and without any hesitation, she took several passing skeleton warriors and headed towards the warehouse. The warehouse stored the furniture and spoils of war that Fang Hao had collected. Among them, they had obtained a substantial amount of furniture from the Blood Clan, and the designs were quite extravagant. However, the patterns carved into the furniture involved motifs often used by the Blood Clan. Skeletal heads and bat wings were rather common. The maids in the city wouldn't choose this type of furniture, so most of it ended up gathering dust in the warehouse. It just so happened that they could be used for Rolana. After Rolana and the skeletons left, Fang Hao directly headed to the Viscera Museum. It was deep into the night. The nightstone lamps on the streets emitted a faint light, illuminating the streets. The Viscera Museum was a special building. The prerequisite for its upgrade was for the Lord's Manor to reach the Stone Castle level. The 10th level was the Stone Castle, and they were 1 level away. Upon stepping into the Viscera Museum, he could immediately feel a bone-chilling coldness. The museum was fairly bright inside, but completely empty. The stone doors on the 2nd floor remained closed, as Nelson was inside, crafting his demon dolls. Fang Hao took out the killing proficiency, Viscera jar from his storage space and came before the miniature buildings. Currently, a revival. Viscera jar was placed at the position of the burial grounds. The lightning speed, Viscera jar was stationed at the target range. However, before the next upgrade of the Viscera Museum, only 1 Viscera jar could be placed on each building. This left Fang Hao once again stuck with making a choice. Remaining buildings included the burial grounds, corridor of the dead, undead mage tower, giant stone tomb. The burial grounds, a building for recruiting skeleton workers, was not suitable for the killing proficiency attribute, so it could be directly ruled out. Left with the cavalry, mages, and 2-handed swordsmen, who would be the best fit. So far, in all the battles, there were few opportunities to use cavalry. Not only because the cavalry's levels weren't high, but also there was no hero who was particularly good at commanding cavalry within the territory. In the upcoming grand battles, including the Cold Wind Mountains and Bloody Mountains, the terrain wasn't suitable for the performance of cavalry. Hence, in Fang Hao's hands, he had never been able to unleash the mobility and combat power of the cavalry. Therefore, killing proficiency first ruled out the cavalry building. As for the undead mage, the execution power of magic was indeed great, but the release of skills required incantation time. Within 3 seconds, the accumulation of attack power couldn't be achieved, which made it unable to bring out the effect of killing proficiency. In the end, only Giant Stone Tomb, with the Baron Tomb guards wielding 2-handed swords, was left. After thinking it through, he walked straight to the miniature building Giant Stone Tomb. He placed the Viscera jar in his hand into the circular slot. Click! The slot embarked on a slow descent with a faint sound, leaving only the skullhead jar lid visible. Immediately afterwards, a weak beam of light spread out instantaneously, causing all the Baron Tomb guards to undergo a change in properties. Baron Tomb Guard Tier 4 Blessed Skill. Killing proficiency. Each time an enemy is killed, attack power increases by 100% and attack speed increases by 75% within 3 seconds. Description: these formidably powerful warriors, whether in their past life or after their revival, swing their enormous weapons tirelessly at their targets. No matter how powerful the enemy, they can't escape death. The viscera jar was indeed a great invention for the Undead clan. This method amplified the attributes of the troops. It bestowed upon these already indefatigable and fearless troops the capacity for bizarre and unpredictable abilities. Of course, the collection of viscera jars wasn't easy, as they contained the organs of powerful creatures. Emerging from the Viscera Museum, Fang Hao arrived at the Trade Alliance building once again. Inside the building, the skeleton merchants who had finished their day's work were chatting and playing cards in the hall. If the skeletons could eat and drink, this place would undoubtedly become a tavern. On seeing Fang Hao entering, all the skeleton merchants stood up to pay their respects. Well, everyone continue playing. I have some business with Daljin. Fang Hao gestured with a smile for everyone to carry on. The skeletons sat down and continued with their business, while Fang Hao headed for the counter. Lord, it seems that you've made a substantial amount from this auction? Daljin began. Oh? How can you tell that it was a good result? Fang Hao asked curiously. I've just received news from the Trade Alliance. We've been elevated from ordinary members to gold members, my lord, Daljin continued. No wonder. Daljin didn't even know what he had bought himself. How could he know that the benefits were satisfactory? Apparently, he was referring to the elevation in membership level. It seems that Rolana, being a dark gold hero, was quite useful. Even if she couldn't be used in combat, keeping her as a mascot turned out to be quite beneficial, as she intimidated quite a few people. What's the difference between a gold member and an ordinary member? Fang Hao asked. My lord, gold members have a 1% tax rate in the Trade Alliance and can submit up to 4 purchase orders. Furthermore, they have certain privileges during events organized by the Trade Alliance, Daljin explained. Ordinary members were charged a 2% tax. Fang Hao sold a significant quantity of items, and he had to pay 10,000 warfire coins in tax for every 500,000 coins earned. It could be said that Fang Hao found it painful to see this amount deducted, but he had no choice but to trade through the Trade Alliance's platform. Now that the rate had decreased to 1%, the tax was even less. Furthermore, the number of purchase orders increased from 2 to 4, allowing him to buy anything he needed directly through these orders. Above gold members, are there any other membership levels? There are also diamond members and supervisors. Diamond members are the top-tier members of the Trade Alliance with a tax rate of 0.5%. Supervisors surpass the concept of membership, possessing voting and election rights within the Trade Alliance's internal affairs, Daljin detailed. In that case, the members on the 3rd and 4th floors of the auction could very likely be the gold and diamond members Daljin mentioned. In addition to the reduced tax rate, they also enjoyed certain privileges, further emphasizing the uniqueness of high-level members. Supervisors, on the other hand, were more like shareholders in modern terms. Once their power was strong enough to influence the Trade Alliance, they would be courted and appointed as supervisors within the alliance, afforded certain rights. While Daljin didn't specify, these supervisors might even be entitled to a share of the Trade Alliance's profits. This membership level system indicated that the internal regulations of the Trade Alliance were thorough and comprehensive. So, from now on, the Trade Alliance will only take 1% from our transactions? Yes, my lord. Good. Fang Hao acknowledged with a nod, continuing. By the way, Daljin, I need a few materials. Take a look in the store to see if they're being sold. If they aren't, just fill out an order form directly. I need them urgently. Okay, my lord. Please tell me what you need, and I'll check if we have them. Coral crystals, tears of the ocean, breeze white coral, dawn blue coral. I need 50 units of each. Fang Hao read from the Book of Lords. These were the 4 missing materials for the wishing well. Given the names, these materials are obviously ocean-derived or from coastal areas. Fang Hao doubted he could obtain them locally. Considering that even the most precious tears of Ashar were obtained during the auction, he should speed up the construction process. The sooner he finished building the well, the sooner he could test the effects of the wishing well. An orange construction with a multitude of unique materials. It should yield powerful results. Click. Daljin opened the shopping grid behind him and searched through the wealth of goods for the materials Fang Hao needed. Upon confirmation, Daljin stated, My lord, we do offer coral crystals for sale at a price of 120 warfire coins per unit. So expensive. Ah, buy them anyway. Place purchase orders for the rest. If there are people selling coral crystals, the others should be available for purchase as well. Fang Hao nodded and added, Very well, my lord. Dalton directly purchased 50 units of coral crystals and filled out a purchase order for the remaining materials. Completing the orders, he turned around and threw them into the mailbox behind him. Fang Hao did not stay for long. Upon leaving the Trade Alliance building, he returned to the Lord's castle for rest. Although he only attended an auction today, it was quite exhausting. The next day, dawn. Fang Hao woke up early from his slumber, stood by the window, and stretched his somewhat stiff back. He didn't sleep very well last night. Rolana, along with the skeletons, planned around as they moved furniture. He didn't quite understand why moving existing furniture was as loud as a full-scale renovation. He dared not voice his curiosities or even ask about it. Fang Hao was finally allowed some peace and slowly fell asleep when Rolana and the others quieted down in the middle of the night. At breakfast, Angia, while eating, said to Rolana, "You seem quite capable, Rolana. How about we spar later?" PFFT. Fang Hao almost choked. He looked at Angia in surprise and thought to himself, "Don't give away your head so easily." He still remembered when Rolana went crazy. She crushed a massive iron coffin into metal fragments. "No need, I'm not good at close combat. You can practice with that lizardman," Rolana casually replied while sipping her fruit wine. Fang Hao frowned, observing the situation in front of him. Not only did Rolana reject it, but she also used a rather euphemistic way to do so. Although she didn't remember Demetridge's name, it did show her attitude. "Yesterday, you repelled that fairy with just one finger. How did you do that?" Angia continued to ask. "It's the compression of energy. It wasn't the power of my finger that knocked the fairy away, but the power of dark magic, which isn't suitable for you," Rolana explained softly. "Can I learn dark magic?" "There is a way, but I feel that Fang Hao wouldn't allow it." The two chatted calmly, giving off a sense of unreal tranquility. After breakfast, Angia was dragged off by Laurie to visit the newly established Blackfoot Cat Village. During breakfast, Laurie had already arrived, but seeing Rolana there as well, he dared not come in and waited outside. Those who had witnessed Rolana go crazy all felt a certain amount of fear in their hearts. Fang Hao was no different. When Angia left, Rolana also went to the tailor shop, saying she wanted to customize 2 pieces of clothing. As everyone else was busy with their own things, Fang Hao continued to research his magic book. Nearing noon, Daljan, the skeleton merchant, strolled into the Lord's mansion, greeted some people including Ira, and said to Fang Hao, "My lord, here is the blueprint for the stone floor you requested." After saying this, he handed over the blueprint to Fang Hao with both hands. "Great. Thank you, Daljan," Fang Hao exclaimed happily. With the blueprint, the Lord's mansion could now be upgraded to level 10. "It's what I should do, my lord." Fang Hao took the blueprint and Daljan once again bowed before exiting the hall. Using the Book of Lords to check the materials needed, they also began to display. Stone floor, stone X2. Description: house floor made from stones. That simple. The material only required 2 units of stones. And stones, or raw material extracted from stone mining. It is difficult to mine stones in ordinary quarries, but in the Coldwind Mountain Range and Bloody Mountain Range, it's quite common. Stone category. Stone description: beautifully patterned rocks. With sufficient materials confirmed, Fang Hao immediately left the Lord's mansion. He began to make stone floors on a vacant lot on the side. 100x amplification triggered. Obtained stone floor 808. 808 pieces of stone floor appeared in front of Fang Hao. The surface of the stone floor was smooth, with unique patterns of stone. Indeed, it looked a lot better than the previous ground stone, but still couldn't compare to the stone materials used in yesterday's auction hall. Upgrade materials sufficient. Fang Hao called out all the maids cleaning the Lord's mansion. Next would be to upgrade the Lord's mansion. Level 10 Lord Stone Castle. Hard tall wood 25,000. Stone bricks 16,000. Fine stone bricks 5,500. Stone floor 800. Iron 2,100. Cast iron blocks 800. Metal parts 900. Ceramic tiles 3,000. Confirm upgrade. A large light enveloped the Lord's mansion as the previous mansion began to be expanded and extended. Several additional hexagonal towers were added. In design, it had completely transformed into a stone castle. It took about half an hour before the upgrade of the Lord's mansion was completed. Upgrade complete. Your territory has reached level 10 Lord Stone Castle, which meets the criteria for establishing a kingdom. Do you confirm the establishment of the kingdom? As the system notification rang out, Fang Hao froze slightly. When the Lord's mansion was upgraded to level 10, It unexpectedly turned his territory directly into a kingdom. Your territory has reached the level 10 Lord Stone Castle, fulfilling the condition to establish a kingdom. Would you like to confirm the establishment of the kingdom? The option appeared, and he instinctively chose to confirm. Congratulations, Lord, for becoming the first Lord to establish a kingdom. Rewards: all faction influence plus 100, belonging faction influence plus 200, 1 blueprint of faction building orange, 1 blueprint of the kingdom mint purple, 1 blueprint of the kingdom flag making blue, kingdom law scroll, kingdom sand table, 200 shadow stones, 1000 warfire coins. The notification rang out again. Just like when he upgraded the city lord's mansion for the first time, the first lord to establish a kingdom also received a system reward. The system's rewards had never let Fang Hao down. First, he looked at the first blueprint, the faction building blueprint. Ancient burial pit orange category, special building blueprint recruitment, Nisbet prerequisite for construction, Lord Stone Castle materials needed, 1,200 durable wood, 3,500 stone bricks, 1,200 iron blocks, 800 cast iron blocks, 5 traces of death, 8 shadow stones. Description: the ancient eternal undead protect the grand mausoleum. What is so-called death is nothing more than proof of decay. Fang Hao felt a jolt of joy when he read the introduction to the blueprint. Because he had the ability to augment 100 times, the undead clan's troop building construction was exactly what he needed. Especially strong troop building construction. However, the name of the troop type that this building recruits sounded more like a person's name. It wasn't like skeleton warrior or undead mage, these names with troop type profession. But considering that the building is orange, it should be very powerful. When the time comes, you just need to recruit the troops and check their attributes. He continued to the second blueprint. Kingdom mint category, building prerequisite, kingdom, United City State. Construction requirements: 1,100 durable wood, 2,500 stone bricks, 850 hemp rope, 800 iron, 500 cast iron blocks, 1,200 metal parts, 1 red flame essence. Description: economy is the strongest backing in the competition for survival. The mint can produce a constant stream of gold coins for you. Fang Hao understood the purpose of the mint. A place to manufacture gold coins. In the warehouse, a lot of gold and silver utensils are stored. All these items are the spoils of war, which also includes the burial goods obtained from some ancient tombs. They are corroded and damaged, and can no longer be used. They could be melted into gold coins later. However, the problem of mint production was also very obvious. The gold and silver utensils will eventually run out. Without gold and silver mines, it is difficult to maintain continuous production afterwards. Fang Hao recalled that Lis City seemed to have its own gold mine. He could study it on his own. Next is the production blueprint. Kingdom flag: 1 durable wood, 1 leather, 2 linen, 5 spun yarn, 1 silk, 3 metal parts. Description: you can create your own flag, which represents the identity of the kingdom. There's not much to say about the flag. He could make one later to see its use. Finally, there's the Kingdom Law Scroll and the Kingdom Sand Table. These 2 items are finished products, not blueprints. Kingdom Law Scroll category, scroll effect, Kingdom Order plus 10% description. The kingdom's laws and regulations are standardized and revised, containing all the laws and regulations that all residents within the kingdom and foreigners must abide by. The scroll is a 1-meter-long silk scroll. The surface of the scroll is in dark purple. You can feel the exquisite and delicate patterns by touching it. When unfolded, the inside of the scroll is blank, without any content or text. It seemed that he needs to fill in the established law articles. Besides, the scroll is also a treasure itself, which increased public order by 10%. Kingdom Sand Table: it's a 6-meter-long, 5-meter-wide sand table. The table includes everything from the Coldwind Mountains to the Blood Mountain Range, and even Crescent Heights. However, due to the large scope of the territory, the downsized sand table only intuitively presents roads and terrain. Except for a few major cities, the villages and towns are not manifested on the sand table. After looking over all the rewards, Fang Hao revealed a satisfied smile. The gains this time are not insignificant. On the other hand, Yu Chanpeng stood in front of his lord's mansion, silently looking at the building shrouded in light. He remained silent on the surface, but he was also somewhat excited. Congrats, boss, for being the first to upgrade the Lord's Mansion to level 10. Once the system rewards are distributed, no one will dare challenge your status as the number 1 in the area. said an obsequious chubby man at his side. The chubby man was Qiu Shang, who was boycotted by everyone in the channel for selling tiles at an outrageous price. He was somewhat disheartened by the rejection he received in the regional channel. Unexpectedly, however, he received an invitation from Yu Tenpeng right after. Keep in mind, during this time, the Tenpeng alliance has been quite popular, even overshadowing Fang Hao. After some exchanges, Qiu Shang joined the Tenpeng alliance, becoming one of its members. In the future, the alliance members will protect him whenever there is danger. Of course, this kind of protection is not free either. Everyone must be of value to the alliance, and Qiu Shang's value lies in providing tiles. This was also one of the conditions for joining the Tenpeng alliance. All members' resources must be under the unified management of the alliance hierarch. This allowed Tenpeng's own city to be upgraded quickly. Today, after purchasing polished stone floors at a high price, he began elevating to level 10. According to the system's past rules, the first lord to reach the level of a stone castle would receive a system reward, even soaring to great heights. Well, there is no rush, replied Yu Tenpeng with a nod, maintaining his mature, composed demeanor. He was even younger than Qiu Shang. At 32, he had run his own company before crossing into this world, but he wasn't well regarded in the industry. After arriving here, he obtained the alliance token during a mission. With this, he established the Tenpeng alliance. Now, many people craved to join the Tenpeng alliance, and made a great fuss over Yu Tenpeng. These people were willing to break their backs working for him, and some of them were even attractive ladies who desired to serve as his female lords. There were already 2 women within the alliance who had been A-list celebrities before they crossed over, and they were quite pretty and had good bodies. They took shifts to accompany Yu Tenpeng using the teleportation array in order to prove their value. With every improvement made to the Lord's mansion, transforming into a castle, the smile on Yu Tenpeng's face would become even more brilliant. Once the light dissipated, Yu Tenpeng immediately received a system notification. But his smile gradually faded, turning into confusion and disbelief. Qiu Shang noticed the change in Yu Tenpeng's expression. He quickly asked, "Boss, what's up? Did you get any special reward for being the first?" Yu Tenpeng's elevation to level 10 had been significantly aided by Qiu Shang. In a good mood, he cooked up an idea of spending the night with the celebrity. But when he noticed Yu Tenpeng's seriousness, Qiu Shang sensed that something was wrong. "Boss, what's wrong?" Looking upset, Yu Tenpeng stated, "The system notice said that I was the second one to reach level 10. How is this possible?" Qiu Shang's eyebrows instantly creased. His mind was racing, but he quickly figured it out. Exclaiming, he reasoned, it must have been Fang Hao. Aside from you, only he could produce tiles. Damn, boss, he stole your reward. An undertone of rage creeped onto Yu Tenpeng's face. People been flattering him, and celebrities spending the night with him. He had felt as though he was the chosen one during this past month. Now, he felt his rightfully earned reward had been snatched away by Fang Hao. On another thought, Yu Tenpeng had questions. Even if he also possesses tiles, how could his city be upgraded to level 10 before ours? The Tenpeng alliance combined everyone's materials to promote him to level 10. How could Fang Hao get there first? That's not possible at all. Boss, that must be Fang Hao. He's the only one with tiles, and I heard that people have found his subordinate cities. He must have had his own team, Qiu Shang continued. After considerable thought, Yu Tenpeng replied. With a snort, he continued, "Contact the person in charge. I want to find out where Fang Hao's territory is." Hearing these words, a grin instantly appeared on Qiu Shang's face. He'd been harboring a grudge against Fang Hao. If they could use the alliance forces to eliminate Fang Hao, it would also serve as revenge for himself. All right, I'll contact him right away. After checking his rewards, Fang Hao immediately examined the properties of the Lord's mansion. Level 10 Lord's Stone Castle belongs to Fang Hao abilities, production/collection plus 5%, troop movement plus 5%, all attributes plus 6% existing buildings, level 9 underground cemetery, level 9 stables. Can designate positions: Bronze Bowl City Talak, Frostwind City, Skullcrusher, North Fortress, Blackthorn, Prul Tavik, Blood Castle, Rolana Antibias, Webweaver Camp, Domina, unnamed, Zhang Bin, unnamed, Fu Lei, unnamed, Dom Jiayu, unnamed, Kang Yang. Remarks: this is the core building in the territory. Required materials for next level upgrade: tough wood 30,000, stone bricks 20,000, fine stone bricks 7,500, polished stone floor 1,200, iron 2,500, cast iron blocks 1,200, metal parts 1,200, tiles 5,000. The quantity of required materials had increased a lot, but there were no special materials needed, as long as the factory continued to produce materials. Advancing to level 11 was only a matter of time. Simultaneously, he also found a position system. Within the territory, the two main categories under the positions were governor and commander. The governor is the initial appointee by the Book of Lords, responsible for the city's development and management. The commander is the military leader entrusted with control over the city's military operations. Previously, each governor appointed by Fang Hao in various cities was dual-valent, handling both the management and military duties. For instance, in Bronze Bull City, Telek served as both the governor and the military leader. With the positions now separated, it would be easier to manage, but he was short-staffed. Adjustments need to be made step by step, and everything couldn't be rushed. Ira, with her maids, was touring the expanded stone castle. They were planning on what to do with each room and what sort of furniture to add. There were still too few people living in the Lord's residence. There were only 3 people, Fang Hao, Ira, and Angia. It was as if there were only 3 occupied rooms in a 6-story building full of rooms. The maids chatted cheerfully while discussing this. Fang Hao stepped out of the Lord's mansion, heading towards the Undead construction area. He was somewhat eager to see the kind of formidable troops he could recruit with the blueprint he received as a reward this time. Behind the giant stone tomb is a vacant plot of land, providing ample space for construction. Opening the blueprint of the ancient tomb, construction is confirmed. An orange radiance begins to ascend, gradually taking the shape of a pyramid. An hour passed, and when Fang Hao returned from the Lord's mansion, a small pyramid had already appeared before him. Although called small, that's when compared to the pyramids of Egypt from another era. The pyramid before his eyes was at least the size of 5 football fields. Its exterior is constructed of neatly arranged stone bricks, the surfaces of which are intricately carved with various symbols and texts representing the Undead clan. Facing Fang Hao's side is a giant stone gate, etched with an array of patterns and texts. In front of the stone gate are 2 stone lanterns, giving off a faint blue glow. It couldn't possibly house a pharaoh, could it? Muttered Fang Hao. As everyone knows, pyramids are where pharaohs are buried. Although the one before my eyes is a bit small, it should belong to a royal member. He immediately checked the properties of the building. Ancient tomb category, special building recruitable, Nisbet, wriggling spine 10, death trace 7, star silver 5, forgotten soul 1. Description: the eternal undead of the ancients, guarding the majestic tomb, so-called death is nothing more than a proof of decay. The recruitment requirements are quite stringent. Except for wriggling spine, other materials are more precious than the last. Especially the forgotten soul. There's only one in the domain. It was obtained from killing the fear devourer and kept as loot. If it weren't for that chance encounter, Fang Hao would probably be unable to recruit. Would you like to consume the corresponding materials to recruit Nisbet? Since it has come to this point, not recruiting seems unjustified. Recruit. 100-fold amplification triggered. Recruit Nisbet 101. The stone gate in front of him opens, and a large figure walks out slowly. At the same time, with the triggering of the 100-fold magnification, tall figures began to appear all around. This is a type of soldier standing more than 4 meters tall. The huge skeleton covered in complicated patterns. What caught the eye is that their skulls resemble the shape of Null's head. Empty eye sockets emitting faint blue light. It exudes an extreme sense of oppression. Fang Hao immediately checked their attributes. Nisbet Tier 10 faction. Undead racial characteristics. Undead, hollow skeleton, light weakness. Skills: soul devour, attributes stripping, death god's descent. Innate skills: domain power mastery, domain axe mastery. Soul devour passive: whenever this unit kills an enemy, it devours the enemy's soul to enhance its own strength. Attribute stripping active: this unit can strip the target's racial attributes, rendering them ineffective for at least 5 seconds. Death god's descent active: blessing from the death god boosts all attributes by 100% for 120 seconds. Description: Lik priests, following the likeness of the ancient god, created Nisbet. They guard around the royal tombs and are the creators of the immortal king's power. Tier 10 as expected. Tier 10. In this world, The ranking of soldier types only goes up to Tier 10. And Tier 10 is further divided into upper, middle, and lower ranks, with different levels of strength among them. Once reaching Tier 10, whether one can become a hero or not is the biggest challenge faced. Numerous powerful beings are stuck at Tier 10, unable to pass the test and advance to become a hero. Nisbet has a total of 3 skills, but each skill has its own distinct characteristics. The first one, Soul Devouring, enables him to continually enhance his abilities by killing enemies during the fight. The Stripping Trait skill is more like a skill designed specifically against a certain race. Traits refer to race traits. For example, Demetrage's underwater breathing and scale armor and the Flower Demon's flight are all race traits. By stripping these traits from the opponent at the right time, one could even directly kill the opponent. The final skill, Death God's Descent, a straightforward amplification ability, increases attributes by 100% within 120 seconds. It seems somewhat similar to his own body of giant spirit, but lasts longer. 101 robust skeletons, their pupils flickering with soul flames. After looking around at their surroundings, they turn their gaze upon Fang Hao. After a brief hesitation, all the Nisbets kneeling on one knee lower their skulls. We greet the great immortal king. The voice of Nisbet is low and hoarse, like a throat that hasn't had water for a long time, or like a warning from a wild beast. Fang Hao raises an eyebrow, quite surprised at the skeletons kneeling before him. This is the first time he has recruited speaking troops from the Undead army building. A mouth like a human's, yet endowed with wisdom. Of course, being able to speak is a good thing for Fang Hao. Get up, all of you. Welcome to the team, Fang Hao says with a smile. Platter. With the sound of bones rubbing against each other, all the Nisbets stand up, continuing to look at Fang Hao, waiting for the next command. What's your name? Fang Hao asks the Nisbet in the lead. Nisbet. Huh? What about you? Fang Hao asks the second one. Nisbet. He continues to ask the third, the fourth, and still the same, Nisbet. Well, I'll be. All 101 of the skeletal frames are called Nisbet. This Nisbet is not only their professional title, but also their name. It would be impossible to differentiate between them if they all have the same name. He couldn't possibly be expected to give them all names, could he? After pondering for a moment, he says, Nisbet, all of your names are the same, which may be hard to distinguish in the future. How about I give you all a number? We follow your directives, sir. The Nisbets respond in unison. Fang Hao rubs his ears, and has everyone lined up in a long line. He goes on to say, you're Nis 1, you're Nis 2, and you're Nis 3. Fang Hao goes on, numbering from Nis 1 all the way to Nis 101. All of the Nisbets happily accept their new numbers without showing any resentment or opposition. Perhaps, the Undead always have an indifferent emotion. After giving all the Nisbets their new numbers. Next it is the equipment phase. The Nisbets are more than 4 meters tall, with a strong and robust skeleton. Surprisingly, they're rather close in size to the trolls. The best troll equipment is the Power of the Sovereign set, a blue troll suit. The defense level of this equipment has reached level 4, which makes it a top-tier product among blue sets. Fang Hao opens the Book of Lords, and directly finds the corresponding blueprint to craft this equipment. Triggered 100-fold amplification. 101 Power of the Sovereign sets obtain triggered 100-fold amplification. 101 Power of Sovereign war axes obtained 1 by 1. Pieces of equipment materialize around Fang Hao, scattering about on the ground. Okay, Nis 1, you command everyone to equip the new gear. Fang Hao says. Yes, sir. Nis 1 nods, leading the Nisbets to put on the compatible gear strewn about on the ground. When everyone has finished putting on their gear, Fang Hao nods in approval. Standing there as Tier 10 troops, they possess an oppressive charisma unlike ordinary soldiers. By the way, can you all perform the heroic trials to advance into heroes? A sudden thought flashes across Fang Hao's mind, the prospect of the Tier 10 troops upgrading to heroes. In his territory, the Tier 10 Bone Dragon, a troop evolved from a corpse, is unable to take the heroic trials. But normally recruited troops, once they reach Tier 10, can take the hero trials. He just doesn't know whether these Nisbets, with their wolf-like heads, meet the requirement. Nis 1 replies directly, Sir, we can take the hero trials, but the difficulty is higher than ordinary troops and the pass rate is not high. Based on the description, these Nisbets seem to have some connections with the ancient gods. Possibly, this is the very factor that ramps up the difficulty of the trials. Difficulty is not a problem as long as there's a chance. Later on, I will gather hero hearts needed for the hero trials and then arrange for you to go through the trials. Fang Hao states directly. Thank you, sir. Niswan answers in a flat tone. Emotion can't be deciphered from the tone, only apathy and hoarseness. Fang Hao discusses with them for a while, and then begins to assign tasks. The 101 Nisbets are split into two teams. One team led by Nis 51 heads to Zhenbei city of the Bloody Mountain Range to assist Blackthorn in the attack on Core Holy Mountain. Core Holy Mountain is the most mysterious place in the Bloody Mountain Range. Orange hero Caius, carrying offerings to the god, is likely to face some unknown dangers. Even if the trolls think that the god of Core Holy Mountain mentioned in the legends is a lie concocted by the Bloodthroat clan leader. But in the treasure box, Fang Hao did obtain a totem scroll of Body of Giant Spirit. The rewards in the treasure chest were related to the current situation. It forced him to reconsider whether there really was a deity sleeping inside Core Holy Mountain. Since there existed a 10th-tier army, naturally the first task was to support the front line of the battlefield, reducing the dangers and losses in combat to a minimum. The remaining 50 were left in his territory, responsible for its safety, patrolling, and night watch duties. Once the arrangements were made, Nisbet 51, along with the Nisbets numbered after him, set off promptly according to the designated route toward North Town City. The team left behind first replaced the guards at the Tower Pavilion outside the Lord's Mansion. The two graveyard guards were replaced by Nisbet 49 and Nisbet 50. The remaining Nisbets were tasked with patrolling and securing the outskirts of the city. After dealing with the Nisbets' affairs, Fang Hao continued to the industrial area to construct the coin mint, the second blueprint he had acquired. Selecting a location, he began the construction immediately. 30 minutes later, the coin mint was completed. Coin mint placement, workers 0/12 materials, gold, silver production. Undead gold coins, undead silver coins description. Through processing, faction-based currencies can be produced. Upon seeing the currency types, Fang Hao was taken aback. The currency of the immortal undead was called skeleton gold, with a skull on the front and a frozen hourglass as the back design. It represented that death was not only about pain and solitude, but also about eternal time and immortal souls. The immortal undead's coinage technique was already very mature. Within the Trade Alliance's exchange rate matrix, it had reached a ratio of 2:1. This was a high exchange rate among gold coins and common currencies, and some species would deliberately trade for gold coins of the undead clan. To go back and recreate the rough beasthead gold and troll gold from it, squeezing out their gold content. Actually, all species were using warfire coins as common currency. Therefore, it didn't matter what faction's gold coins were being produced. Even if it was spent among the human clan, skeleton gold could be exchanged into warfire coins. They could then be used in human cities, only that an extra exchange step was involved. This had no impact after all. Moreover, the current gold and silver reserves in the warehouse were not plentiful. Until a gold and silver mine could be excavated, gold coin production wouldn't be high. So, the second coin mint didn't need to be constructed. Production could be taken up slowly. 12 skeletal laborers were called to start work at the coin mint. Any gold and silver objects without use in the warehouse were all used to smelt into gold or silver coins. After settling the coin mint affairs, it was also lunchtime. After lunch, Fang Hao planned to construct the Pantheon and upgrade the Viscera Museum. Just as he arrived at the city center where the deity statues were placed, there was suddenly a press from the sky above his head. He looked up and saw a bone dragon soaring past overhead, and a giant spider dressed like a maid descended in front of him, hanging from the dragon by a thread of spider silk. The moment she landed, she turned from a giant spider into a tall woman nearly 2 meters tall. It was Domina, the leader of the webweaver camp. She was dressed in a black and white maid's long dress, with 4 pairs of long, black, shiny sharp feet sprouting from her back. Upon seeing Fang Hao, Domina's cold face revealed a small smile. "Greetings, my lord." Fang Hao was startled by the sudden appearance of Domina. The webweaver camp was not near his area, and even by flying on a bone dragon, it would take nearly half a day to get there. Domina wouldn't come over without a special reason. "Well, long time no see, Domina." Fang Hao responded with a smile. Domina slightly blushed, collecting herself before continuing. "My lord, I've come to report 2 issues." "Yes, please take a seat, Domina." Fang Hao signaled her to sit on the bench across from him. Seated, Domina continued. "My lord, half a week ago, our mine was attacked by the Blackstone tribe. Although we repelled them, they may attack us again in the future." "Blackstone tribe?" Yes, my lord. Blackstone tribe is a large tribe. For some reason, they have discovered the location of the mine and conflict has occurred, Domina said. Blackstone tribe has been showing up frequently in Fang Hao's head these days. From the Blackfoot Cat's Mouth, from the human clan in the Trade Alliance outpost. This time, Domina reported that the Blackstone tribe attacked the mine. Domina's mines, capable of producing mithril, is the most valuable of all he owns. It must be flawless. If the opposition truly starts to affect the mining operations, even if it means a long journey, Fang Hao will strike them down, ensuring the normal operation of the mine. All right, what's the second matter? Fang Hao continued to ask. The second thing, as you instructed, we conducted an exploration of the treasure cave in the east. We found a creature on the mountain that greatly resembles a dragon. It seems to be guarding the mountain cave, Domina pondered as she spoke. Last time at the Webweaver encampment, Fang Hao assisted Domina in eliminating the attacking Knoll tribe. They found an abundance of treasures and a single-page map among the spoils of war. They learned about the treasure cave through the Knoll clan leader's interrogation. At the time when Demetrija was attacking the Crescent Heights, Fang Hao had Domina arranged to scout it out. The treasure cave Domina mentioned this time was news of the same. A dragon? Fang Hao frowned. In this region, besides his bone dragon, no other dragon-related creatures have been discovered. Yes, my lord, it greatly resembles a dragon, but its size is much smaller and there are many of them, Domina continued. The indigenous people do not have the ability to identify the types of troops. When encountering unknown creatures, they would compare them to known species. How big exactly? Fang Hao continued to ask. Its body is about the size of a brown bear. It also has large wings. The shape isn't too different from the dragon clan. Domina hasn't seen the real dragon clan, but the bone dragon is right there. They are very similar in skeleton and size. The only difference is their body size. Young ones? Asked Fang Hao. The number is close to 100. I don't think they are actual dragons, Domina said. Dragons possess immense strength, but few of their kind exist. Otherwise, the continent would already have been ruled by dragons, leaving no space for the human and beast clans. Did you find anything in the cave? My lord, our giant spiders are unable to confront these dragon-like creatures. We only explored the surrounding area and drew a detailed map. We did not enter the cave, so we can't say for certain whether there are enemies or treasures inside, Domina said with her head lowered. This was indeed the truth. Military rank is one factor, sometimes racial traits also determine who has the upper hand in battle. The giant spiders, facing flying units, could hardly have the advantage. They could even only be passively taking hits. Fang Hao pondered for a moment and nodded. All right, I understand. Rest in the territory tonight. Tomorrow, we will go and inspect that cave together. Yes, my lord. After discussing with Domina, Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords and continued constructing the Pantheon. Pantheon, tough wood 3,200, delicate stone bricks 3,000, cast iron chunks 420, metal parts 1,200, traces of prayer 12, traces of God 5, rich essence 22. Confirm construction. A light flickered. An elegant and grand temple appeared before his eyes. The sun shone on the building, reflecting a dazzling brilliance, gray-white marble columns, clean white steps. On the sides of the corridor, 2 rows of made statues were holding musical instruments. It gave off a feeling of a fantastical realm. I wonder if the god of Undead likes this environment. Pantheon category. Temple ability. Blessing, Kingdom Faith Blessing. All placed statues gain plus 15% blessing attributes. Kingdom Faith. Able to place a king statue inside the temple, receiving dependent faith. Description. In the closest position to the gods, listen to God's guidance. The greatest difference between the Pantheon and the temple is the number of statues that they could hold. The temple can only house 2 statues, whereas the Pantheon doesn't impose such a limitation. As long as the statues don't repel each other, they can all be placed in the Pantheon. The attribute enhancement was also improved from 10% to 15%. And a statue of the king could also be erected to accept the faith of the people. Although it seemed a bit abrupt, Fang Hao was certain that he was the king. In other words, Fang Hao could erect a statue of himself in the Pantheon. Erecting a statue can increase the attributes of his territory. Erect his own statue. Paying homage to oneself. That felt somewhat strange. For the time being, there were 4 statues in his land. They were, respectively, Goddess of Harvest, Slaughter God, God of Deception, and the God of Undead that was unlocked by the temple. He placed all of these statues in the pantheon. A halo spread out from the temple and enveloped his territory. Having managed the pantheon, Fang Hao went on to upgrade the rejuvenation spring well and the skeleton transformation field. After the upgrade of the rejuvenation spring well, the water production enhanced from 1 unit per hour to 2 units per hour. The well's capacity also expanded to 100 units. The upgrade of the skeleton transformation field reduced the conversion time and stages downgraded after the transformation. Before, each soldier type would downgrade by 2 stages after conversion, but now it would only reduce by 1 stage. It could better preserve the combat power of the bodies before their death. In the end, only the Viscera Museum was left unupgraded. Nelson was still in the stone door, diligently crafting demon dolls. To avoid causing harm to Nelson in the process of upgrading, Fang Hao decided that it wouldn't be too late to upgrade after Nelson had completed his work. Busy with building upgrade and construction, Fang Hao's day soon passed. By the time he had finished all his tasks, it was already quite late. After dinner, Fang Hao read some magic books in his room, then went to bed to rest. The next morning, after breakfast, Fang Hao and the others started to check their equipment, ready to leave. According to yesterday's agreement with Domina, they were going to ride bone dragons to the Webweaver camp to explore the treasure cave and see what trouble the Blackstone tribe had brought. They summoned 20 bone dragons, accompanied by 40 Nisbets, 20 skeleton trolls, 70 skeleton archers, and a large number of skeleton bat beasts. Since Domina had already discovered that the enemy was likely holding a dragon-type creature, Fang Hao took more skeleton archers and skeleton bat beasts for this particular purpose. Through many battles, it has been found that archers and bat beasts were quite useful against flying enemies. Although bat beasts possessed the ability to fly, they couldn't sustain long periods of flight. Therefore, on the journey to the Webweaver camp, they needed to cling onto the bodies of the bone dragons, which would carry them for the part of the journey that required flight. The number of bat beasts that a bone dragon could carry in flight was not calculated by seating capacity. Roughly each bone dragon could carry 80 skeleton giant bats while flying. Fang Hao reserved 6 bone dragons for transporting a total of 480 skeleton giant bats. For the heroes, Fang Hao invited Demetrija, Angia and the giant spider monster Domina. Nelson continued to stay in the territory, busy crafting demon dolls. As for Rolana, she had already returned to the Blood Castle the night before riding the bone dragon that Fang Hao had given to her. She told Fang Hao that message for her could be delivered to the castle anytime. It was clear from her behavior that Rolana intended to integrate herself into the group fully. After all the preparations were done, 20 bone dragons carrying the soldiers soared into the sky, grandly heading towards the Webweaver camp. The bone dragons were fast. As they were traveling quickly through the clouds, the roar of the wind echoed in their ears. They flew for nearly half a day, and finally arrived at the Webweaver camp at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The bone dragons landed in the clearing outside the camp. The undead soldiers on their backs also dismounted and braced themselves for battle. Thud, thud, thud. Dense footsteps echoed from the dense forest ahead. Large numbers of humanoid-shaped spider soldiers brandishing swords and longbows burst out from the forest. Seeing Domina, they saluted her slightly. At this point, a gnoll wearing torn jeans stumbled out from behind the spider soldiers. First, he amiably greeted Domina and said, "Lady Domina, you're finally back. I was so worried when you didn't come back yesterday, I hardly slept the entire night." As soon as he had finished speaking, he caught sight of Fang Hao and Angia. Recognizing Fang Hao's identity immediately, he fell to his knees. "My lord, you're here. I dreamt about something wonderful happening last night, and it really did happen." Without much thought, it was clear that this was the gnoll chieftain that he had beaten before. "Didn't you say you were too worried about Domina to sleep last night? How did you have a dream?" Angia caught an inconsistency in his story and promptly pointed it out. "Oh? It was a dream I had in the second half of the night," the gnoll explained while continually scratching his torn jeans. Domina looked at the gnoll and asked, "Yesterday, did the Blackstone tribe come to cause any trouble?" "No, but there were a lot of those damn scouts lurking around our mine," the gnoll said furiously. Now, the gnolls had established a new village outside the mithril mine. Moreover, as Fang Hao continued to provide aid, the living conditions of the gnoll miners had gradually improved. The gnolls didn't want to be attacked by the infamous Blackstone tribe. It would ruin their gradually improving living conditions. Domina looked back at Fang Hao, spoke softly, "Sir, Blackstone tribe has been gradually increasing their scouts around the mine. I fear a direct attack on the mine will happen soon. We should prepare in advance. Fang Hao did not regard the Blackstone tribe too seriously. His undead army was large enough to ravage their tribe. The only difficulty was the broken path between the territory and mine. The distance between the two places was too great. Between the territory and the mine, a swath of orc tribes and strategic locations were cut off, especially now that Bronze Bull and Tasco's Orc City were negotiating trade cooperation. Whimsically deploying the large-scale undead army to the east could probably cause unpredictable troubles. Despite having a large number of troops, he had to deal with it carefully. Causing too much commotion would affect his development and current peace. A large-scale undead army could easily incite scattered orc groups, transforming into a racial battle. Historically, there were instances of living beings rallying together to defeat the undead. However, the mithril mine issue also need to be resolved. Fang Hao began to ponder a solution. Take advantage of the night and let the bone dragon launch a dragon breath attack on Blackstone tribe, reducing their population. Or perhaps he could liaise with hostile tribes to Blackstone tribe for some cooperation. If he couldn't do it openly, there were plenty of covert ways. First, deal with the treasure cave issue. After that then we draw up a plan against the Blackstone tribe, Fang Hao said. As you command, sir. Domina nodded. All right, Domina, you arrange for your people. Bring as many archers as possible. We'll leave immediately, Fang Hao continued. Yes, sir. As Domina was gathering her people, Fang Hao didn't rest either. He opened the Book of Lords and began making carts and iron arrows. 100x amplification triggered. 303 carts obtained. 100x amplification triggered. 505,000 iron arrows obtained. The team's carts stopped in the open area, and a massive number of arrows appeared out of nowhere, falling like rain all around. The number of iron arrows may not be needed in this amount. Even if there were leftovers, the leftover arrows could be given to the humanoid giant spider's archers. Large numbers of giant spider hatchlings, forming a long line, emerged from the dense forest. The hatchlings gathered the arrows scattered on the ground, then spat out white silk for bundling. This way of gathering equipment was far more efficient than manually collecting the arrows. In less than 10 minutes, all the arrows on the ground were gathered, neatly stacked onto the carts. Once the ground had been cleared, Fang Hao continued creating dragon lock crossbows and crossbow heavy arrows. 100x amplification triggered. 101 dragon lock crossbows obtained. 100x amplification triggered. 10,100 crossbow heavy arrows obtained. The crossbows and heavy bolts were made, littering the ground all around. Dragon lock crossbows had wheels under them, which would make transportation facile. The size of the heavy bolts was more like a lance, already exceeding the range of arrows. Giant spider hatchlings attempted to reorganize, but even lifting proved to be a challenge. It came down to skeleton warriors to do the reorganization. After the equipment preparation was completed, Domina brought her men out. Sir, excluding the soldiers left behind, I have gathered 100 spiderized archers and 50 spiderized warriors, Domina said. Good, prepare to march at once. Yes, sir. After a final check on the equipment, the team set out. They continued eastward from the webweaver's camp. Some wild beasts followed the team from a distance. The number of individuals in the team was considerable. The beasts only followed for a short distance before retreating back to the forest. Under Domina's guidance, Fang Hao and the others finally reached the fringe of the Treasure Caves mountain. Before them was a magnificent mountain. The mountain was densely forested, covered with robust trees. The shade was thick, even paths to climb the mountain couldn't be found. Sir, this is the mountain. The treasure cave on the map is located on the mountainside. Domina transformed into her giant spider form, with her lower body enlarging into a colossal spider. What about those dragon-like creatures you mentioned? Fang Hao, standing by the side, asked. They're hiding in the forest on the mountain. Anytime someone gets close, they launch an attack, and there are a lot of them, Domina explained. It seemed there were no other beasts around here. These are the dragon-like creatures Domina mentioned. Fang Hao thought for a moment and continued to ask. The terrain of the mountain is not suitable for crossbows and archers. Can these enemies be lured out? They should be. Last time we were exploring this area, we were chased quite a distance. Domina, with her huge spider body lying on the ground, replied. Good, then prepare to fight here. Demetrija, you are in charge of the battle arrangements, Fang Hao immediately instructed. Demetrija stepped forward. Yes, sir. Then, he began issuing loud orders to the troop. Reinforce the crossbows, archers check your equipment. Angia lead the infantry forward, prevent any enemies from descending the mountain. Orders were given one after another. With the issuance of orders, everyone sprang into action. The crossbows were reinforced and loaded with bolts. The skeleton shooters and transformed spider shooters were ready with their arrows, waiting for the enemy's approach. The close combat units moved to the front of the formation. This way, they could have some defense in case any ground troops charged down. After everything was ready, Thang Hao directly activated God's presence, controlling a skeleton archer and stepping directly into the dense forest on the mountain. The mountain path was difficult to traverse, and he needed to use a dagger to chop off branches and thorns to proceed forward. He reached halfway up the mountain. Thang Hao indeed saw the dragon-like creatures lurking around the mountain cave. Pseudo-dragon guards 7th rank, they were just as Domina had described. These pseudo-dragon guards bore a shape very close to that of a large dragon, or rather, a smaller version of a large dragon. But each of them was nearly the size of an adult bear. They had brownish red scales, 4 legs, and red flesh wings. They rested on large rocks and trees or chased around. Their numbers were indeed substantial. The 7th rank, among the troops, could be considered a rather high level, dominating this area as the apex creatures. At the very least, ordinary tribes would not dare to provoke these pseudo-dragons. He reconfirmed the surroundings again. After not discovering any other creatures, Thang Hao took his bow, drew it against a pseudo-dragon a tree hole in front, and fired an arrow. Whiz! Puff! The body of a pseudo-dragon was covered with a layer of scale armor. But it obviously did not possess the genuine defense of a large dragon. The iron arrow broke through the superficial scale armor and entered the neck of the pseudo-dragon. Although the wound was not deep, it caused the pseudo-dragon to emit a painful scream. Thang Hao did not linger. He hung the bow on his back, turned around, and ran down the mountain. Meanwhile, the pseudo-dragons found the suspicious invader at this moment. Moreover, there was an arrow stuck in their companion's neck. They all let out screams. Crash! 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 A large number of pseudo-dragons rushed into the sky and pursued the fleeing intruder. Thang Hao ran non-stop, not daring to check the wooing noises behind. He was not afraid of death, but feared that if the skeleton he was controlling died, he would have to draw the enemy again. Thang Hao ran wildly and soon rushed out of the dense forest. Only when he saw Demetrija and the others waiting ahead did he take the opportunity to look back. A large number of pseudo-dragons filled the rear sky. The number was even more than he had imagined, at least more than 300. The pseudo-dragons also discovered the army below. Not only were there the spider creatures from the day before yesterday, but also many skeletons. The pseudo-dragons immediately changed their target, not caring about the fleeing skeleton, but rather rushed towards the mixed army below. Blockading skies, the pseudo-dragons were coming, and the pressure was not small. The undead didn't seem too nervous, but the transformed spider soldiers' faces had started to change, and their spider legs were beginning to tremble. Demetrija, looking at the approaching pseudo-dragons, said coldly, "Attack!" Whiz, whiz, whiz. Bang! Bang! An intense barrage of arrows, like a large net, went straight towards the pseudo-dragons. The crossbows also make earth-shaking noise, shooting hefty bolts into the sky. The pseudo-dragon guardians, with their reddish-brown scale armor, emitted a faint glow under the afternoon sun. Pseudo-dragons displayed a high agility, performing various evasive maneuvers in the air to dodge the incoming arrow shower. But the arrow rain covered a large area. Even though pseudo-dragons used all sorts of methods to evade, some pseudo-dragons were still hit by the arrows. With painful hissing, they fell from the sky, one after another like dumplings. Their scale armor, however, provided the pseudo-dragons with satisfactory defense. The falling pseudo-dragons shook their dizzy heads and continued to fly back into the sky to launch another attack. However, there were unfortunate pseudo-dragons that were pierced directly through their bodies by the dragon-locking crossbow bolts, leaving a bowl-sized hole. They died instantly. Whoosh! 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 The second and third waves of arrow rain quickly followed. The arrows were unleashed, not sparing any cost, like a downpour. The pseudo-dragons resembled flying hedgehogs, their bodies bristling with arrows. At the same time, more and more pseudo-dragons were seriously injured and fell on the ground, unable to get up again. After the third wave, half of the pseudo-dragons were eliminated. Nevertheless, more than 100 of them still attacked desperately. Soon, they reached the airspace above the undead army. The trolls started throwing flying axes. The 20 Nisbets used the strip characteristic skills on the pseudo-dragons. In an instant, black fog enveloped the heads of 20 pseudo-dragons. The next second, their wings twitched and they could no longer fly. They fell from the sky. The Nisbet walked up, raised his battle axe, and cut off the heads of the pseudo-dragons. Fang Hao stood at the end of the line, watching the skills released by the Nisbets. The pseudo-dragons that were stripped of their flight characteristics fell from the sky like victims of Parkinson's disease. Just as I thought. The situation was as he expected. Characteristics referred to racial characteristics, without a deeper interpretation. The form of skill released by the strip characteristics was more like a curse ability. The effects were also like those of a curse, the loss of physical abilities. The battle was continuing. The skeleton giant bats began to act, clashing with the remaining pseudo-dragons. 2 types of attacks from the pseudo-dragons were confirmed so far. Biting and tail attacks. The end of a pseudo-dragon's tail was like the stinger of a scorpion. The stinger could easily pierce the skull of the skeleton giant bat, and the movement was extremely fast. But the skeleton giant bats won in sheer numbers and their lack of sense of pain. They stubbornly entangled the pseudo-dragons. Lots of the pseudo-dragon guardians were kept out of the line by various means. A few pseudo-dragons, despite being studded with arrows, managed to bypass the skeleton giant bats and dive into the ranks below, starting a melee. Change to melee weapons. Demetrija ordered again. All the archers put away their bows and took out their melee weapons from their waists. Angia and Domina also led their melee troops to start cleaning up the surrounding pseudo-dragons. Even the pseudo-dragons who had rushed into the ranks were killed swiftly. It was clear that though this creature resembled the dragon clan in form, the character was more like a wild beast's instinct. Highly aggressive, but not very intelligent. They couldn't judge whether they had a chance of winning based on the enemy's number and equipment level. Even if they didn't have any advantages in the battle, they still launched attacks nonetheless, even showing signs of fighting to the death. Soon, large numbers of pseudo-dragons were cleaned up. Those who realized that they wanted to escape too late were surrounded by the skeleton giant bats and were chewed into white bones. Bones and gore fell from the sky. Sir, all the enemies have been killed. Demetrija walked back. Fang Hao nodded. Well, clean up the battlefield and collect all the bodies. Yes, sir. Demetrija took his orders and left to command everyone to clean up the battlefield. They collected arrows and dealt with bodies scattered all around. While everyone was busy, Angia carefully walked over. Hey. What? You wouldn't need much to convert these little dragons. Can you leave a few for us? Angia said mysteriously. Fang Hao was taken aback and asked in curiosity, do you have a use for them? Well, it's not for me. I am asking for Domina. She wants to taste whether these little dragons are delicious or not. Angia replied. Fang Hao frowned. Domina wants to eat this stuff? The food that could be butchered would be marked as can be butchered. He hadn't received such a notice. No, she wants to feed it to her giant queen spiders in her camp. She doesn't want to eat them. Oh, then leave some for her. Fang Hao nodded in agreement. Good. Angia agreed and walked to the front of the team, whispering to Domina. Then, one could see Domina commanding the spider soldiers to wrap 5 well-preserved bodies with spider silk. They turned the bodies into cocoons. In no time, the battlefield was cleaned up, the arrows were recycled, and they gained 142 of the wriggling spine. Beyond that, there were no other spoils of war. Sir, the scouts have returned. They didn't find any enemies on the road leading to the cave. Demetrija walked over again. Fang Hao nodded in satisfaction. Good, leave some people to guard the supplies. Let's go up the mountain. Yes, sir. The treasure cave is located halfway up the mountain. Without the guidance of a map, it would be very difficult to locate it within such a massive mountain range. The path up the mountain is not easy. The cart and the bodies can't be carried along. Demetrija arranged for some people to stay at the foot of the mountain, not only to guard the belongings, but also to keep an eye out for potential enemies from behind. Fang Hao and others formed a long line. A skeleton troll took the lead, chopping away the thorns blocking the path with the battle axe in its hand. This allowed the team to progress smoothly. Upon reaching the middle, they saw the treasure cave. Everyone drew close, looking at the huge cave. The cave was very tall. Standing in front of it, you feel very insignificant. You can see traces of excavation around the cave. Stay alert here, I'm going in to take a look. Fang Hao said. After using God's presence, he utilized the skeleton sparrow to enter the cave. The skeleton sparrow is small in size and thus often unnoticeable. Even if there are powerful creatures in the cave, there's a great chance they'll overlook such a small sparrow. The cave is dark and deep, with jagged rock walls on either side. Perhaps because they've been dealing with burial grounds lately. Fang Hao even suspects this mid-mountain cave may well be an ancient tomb or some sort of historical monument. The cave path is sinuous. Fortunately, there is only one road. Moving forward, you can see some plants, similar to moss, glowing a faint green light in the corners of the cave. Luminous fungal carpet. The deeper you go, the larger the coverage of this fungal carpet. Covering the floor and walls entirely, it truly resembled a large carpet. Fang Hao controlled the skeleton sparrow to land on the carpet, showing no aggressiveness. So, it's probably just a kind of fungus that grows in particular environments. Soon Fang Hao flew to the deep part of the cave. All around, various nightstones started to appear. As his field of vision became lit up, his heart gave a great leap. It was a wide open, massive space. Rather than a cave, it was more like a palace carved into the mountain. The stone wall was no longer rough. The ceiling hung full of lanterns adorned with nightstones. On the stone columns supporting the roof, intricate designs were carved, contrasting greatly with the stony corridor outside. In the center of the palace was a massive rectangular stone platform, covered in a great deal of fur. Other than the size, it looked quite like a huge stone bed. Surrounding the stone bed, heaps of gold coins and gems could be found. The flicker of the gemstones and gold was almost blinding to Fang Hao's eyes. This is madness. Did he just stumble upon a pirate's treasure trove? How could there be so much wealth? The quantity of jewels shocked Fang Hao. It took a while for Fang Hao to suppress his astonishment. Flapping its wings, the sparrow flew a circle around the cave. Other than the piles of gold and jewels, no danger or enemies were detected. Only after confirming there were no enemies and no danger, Fang Hao controlled the skeleton sparrow to fly out of the cave. After dismissing God's presence, Angia asked, "How is it?" "No danger inside. There's a lot of money." Fang Hao replied, "A lot of money? A lot of money. The cave is filled with gold coins and gemstones," Fang Hao stated confidently. Angia frowned, touched his forehead. "Did you eat some strange mushrooms or something?" "No." Fang Hao checked the light feather short sword strapped at his waist, ensuring that he wasn't under a curse or mental disruption. Therefore, he hadn't hallucinated. There were indeed countless treasures inside. Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords and crafted a large amount of troll-stitched marching tents. This type of tent is stitched from large pieces of beast skin. They can wrap up the gold coins and gemstones for transport. "Let's go, move in," Fang Hao ordered. Everyone, carrying their stitched beast skin, with nightstones out, walked into the cave. They hadn't walked far when suddenly, Demetrija halted the advancing team. With the nightstone in hand, he crouched down and looked at the ground. "Master, there are footprints on the ground leading outwards." Fang Hao and Angia rushed over to Demetrija's side, where they too noticed the outward moving footprints on the ground. When Fang Hao came in earlier, he didn't have the nightstone for illumination. He hadn't noticed the footprints on the ground, but now that Demetrija mentioned it, it was obvious towards what he was implying. Someone had left from inside the cave. Judging from the footprints, they weren't made a long time ago, probably just a few days. Demetrija analyzed. At these words, Fang Hao suddenly thought of the Blood Hunter. It was while he wasn't home that he had cleared out Shadowwind Castle. Now, the same thing is happening again. Wasn't this unearned wealth? Fang Hao stood up and immediately said, "Hurry up and finish moving everything as fast as you can. Let's not disturb the owner when they come back to rest." The pseudo-dragon outside the door was the guard protecting the treasures in the cave. He had already committed the act of killing, so the entity was inevitably formed. Leaving now wouldn't change anything, so he might as well do a thorough job. "All right, let's keep moving." Demetrija gave the order. The large group marched onward swiftly. As they entered the deeper chambers of the palace, everyone's expressions changed. Mountains of treasures. How much fortune was this? Move everything to the carts at the foot of the mountain. Domina, you ride the bone dragon and transport the bodies back, then return here. Fang Hao gave a direct order. "Yes, master." Domina agreed and immediately left. The remaining skeleton trolls and spiderized soldiers opened large stitched-up beast skin bags, filled them up with gold and jewels, then used spider silk to seal the opening. They then carried everything down to the foot of the mountain. The skeleton soldiers were busy going in and out. They carried bag after bag of treasure out. As the surface jewels decreased, they discovered golden chests and dragon crystals on the ground. The moment he saw the dragon crystals, Fang Hao realized that the cave's original owner was probably an actual dragon. The footprints at the entrance might belong to another human, or a dragon in human form. Previously, Domina mentioned to Fang Hao, many races had the ability to morph into human form once they became heroes. Maintaining their original form consumed a tremendous amount of energy, so they typically appeared in humanoid form, retaining some of their original features. Like Domina in her humanoid form, she still retained her insect shell and spider appendages. It's highly possible that the owner of the cave was a dragon who can shapeshift into human form. Master, we finished moving everything and cleaned up any traces we left behind. Demetrija walked over again and reported. Good, you all did well. Fang Hao nodded in approval. Master, we can leave now. It's getting late outside. I'm afraid we won't return to the webweaver's campsite until after midnight. Demetrija continued. The time spent fighting with the pseudo-dragon guard was less than the time it took to transport the treasures. Now it was 10 p.m. The wilderness at night was very dangerous. Wait, Angia, can you write in the Orcish language? Fang Hao asked. It depends on the words. On this pillar, write. The treasures now belong to the Blackstone tribe. If you're not happy, come fight with me, you little dragon hee. You're really bad. Angia smiled, understanding Fang Hao's intentions. She immediately began to carve Fang Hao's words on the stone pillar. Halfway through, she turned back and asked, how do you write fight? You're asking me. Just draw a kitchen knife. All right. Demetrija, standing behind them, watched as the two debated how to substitute for the characters they didn't know how to write. He had to leave and instructed everyone to prepare for the return journey. Soon, the twisted and provoking words were completed. The two of them headed down the mountain, and the team began their return journey. The large group moved swiftly through the night. In the woods on either side of the road, you could hear creatures sounding along with the caravan. Luckily, there were many undead in the team providing an adequate defense. After trailing them for a while, when they're near the webweaver's camp, they gave up following. Domina arranged rooms for everyone. Fang Hao and Angia got a room suspended in the air, secured by white spider webs. Because the spiderized soldiers didn't use beds, the two had to sleep on the ground as well. Just as he closed his eyes, he heard the scurrying sound of spiders outside. It made him uncomfortable. The next morning, Fang Hao walked out with dark circles under his eyes. A giant spider hatchling delivered 2 pieces of roasted meat to him. On the roasted meat, there were still some dark red scales that hadn't been removed. The roast meat was made somewhat coarsely. It looked like the meat was just cut into chunks, roasted, and then sprinkled with some seasoning. Compared to the food Ira makes, it's simply no comparison. Moreover, at a glance, the roasted meat in front of my eyes looks like the corpse of the pseudo-dragon guard that was killed yesterday. There was no prompt for slaughter when the corpse of the pseudo-dragon appeared. Fang Hao wouldn't dare eat such meat casually. Many creatures have toxins in their flesh to lessen their natural predators. If he was poisoned by just eating something casually, it would have been a poor trade-off. Just when Fang Hao planned to let the giant spider hatchling take away the roast meat, Angier rushed out of the room. The roast meat is delivered, let me taste it. Saying that, she took a bite. After chewing a couple of times, she tasted it. The next moment, she spat it out. It's not tasty and it's poisonous. Damn! Fang Hao cursed and immediately got some drinking water for Angia to rinse her mouth. At the same time, he asked the giant spider hatchling to take away the roast meat. The giant spider hatchling held up the tray and ran off. Fang Hao also called a spider warrior standing outside the door. He asked him to inform Domina that the meat was poisonous and couldn't be eaten. The spider warrior left, and Fang Hao looked down at Angia, who was squatting and rinsing her mouth, his brow slightly furrowed. Wasn't it said that the body of the pseudo-dragon was supposed to be a reserve for the giant spider queen? Why was it sent here early in the morning? Adding to that, Angia had been eager to eat just now. Fang Hao could guess a few things. It seemed that Angia had told Domina to send a portion to her after she finished cooking. With a displeased glance at Angia, Fang Hao squatted down and asked, "How are you? How did you know it was poisonous?" "My tongue is still numb. There must be poison. I have experience," Angia said with a heavy tongue. One of Angia's racial traits was poison resistance. As long as she was not killed directly by poison, her body would slowly dilute the toxins in her body and eventually recover to normal. This was the main reason why Angia dared to eat anything and was still alive. If any other race followed her reckless eating method, they might have died many times already. From the storage space, he took out a detox potion and had Angia drink it up. After a while, Demetrija arrived, and Angia had also returned to normal. Fang Hao took out some prepared roast pancakes and divided them among the two as breakfast. As Angia ate, she grumbled about the dragon meat, which was nothing to brag about. Not only was it poisonous, but more importantly, it was not tasty at all. After breakfast, they walked out of the room. At the center of the camp, they saw Domina directing her work. "How's the preparation?" asked Fang Hao. "Sir, everything is ready. The 20 bone dragons can take all these spoils back," Domina replied. The gold and silver jewelry brought back yesterday had been divided into 20 parts, wrapped in thick leather. It was secured to the backs of 20 bone dragons with layers of spider silk. This ensured that the wrapped pieces would not fall or get damaged during the bone dragon's high-speed flight. Well done. The skeleton archers and skeleton trolls that came this time will all be left to you. They will follow your command," Fang Hao continued. Domina hesitated slightly, but still asked, "Sir, what are your plans for the Blackstone tribe?" With the power of the webweaver cap, they were not at the same level as the Blackstone tribe. The only thing Domina could rely on was Fang Hao's undead army. If Fang Hao was unwilling to intervene, not to mention that she would not be able to defend the mithril mine, even her camp might be taken over by the Blackstone tribe. Spider-mutated monsters were particularly despised by the orcs. Falling into the hands of the notorious Blackstone tribe would have unthinkable consequences. After a moment of thought, Fang Hao said, "When the time comes, I will arrange for bone dragons to continue transporting some troops over here to ensure your safety. If the owner of the treasure cave does not take action against Blackstone, I will arrange for the bone dragons to clear out the Blackstone tribe." "The owner of the treasure cave?" Domina asked, her eyebrows creasing slightly. When Fang Hao and Angia were taunting inside the cave, Domina was directing the bone dragons to transport the war loot from the wolf camp batch by batch. She was not aware of this matter. After Fang Hao gave her a brief explanation, Domina instantly understood Fang Hao's intentions. So, he was planning to agitate the murderer. "All right, sir, we'll wait a few more days according to your plan," Domina said. Fang Hao nodded. After explaining the Blackstone tribe's affairs, Fang Hao looked directly at the golden chest on one side. He walked over to open the chest. A large blue light sparkled. Obtained. Blueprint for giant dragon's white steel helmet blue. Blueprint for white steel armor blue. Blueprint for white steel claws blue. Blueprint for white steel tail spike blue. Dragon crystal +8. Warfire coins +120. Seeing the blueprints and dragon crystals that appeared, a look of delight appeared on Fang Hao's face. Finally, there's equipment for the bone dragon to wear. The bone dragon was one of the most powerful units in the territory. Its mobility and combat abilities were incredibly strong. But all along, the bone dragon's armor had been 2 metal shields fixed to the bone dragon's chest to act as defensive armor. The defense was not strong, and when the bone dragon was in fast flight, the armor clattered noisily, which was quite inconvenient. Now, there's finally armor for the bone dragon to wear. Blueprint for giant dragon's white steel helmet. Thick leather 20, iron 22, white steel ingots 18, white steel plaques 10, metal parts 22. Giant dragon's white steel armor blueprint. Thick leather 120, iron 100, white steel ingot 80, white steel plate 60, metal parts 100. Giant dragon's white steel claw armor blueprint. Thick leather 60, iron 50, white steel ingot 42, white steel plate 20, metal parts 65. Giant dragon's white steel tail armor spike blueprint. Thick leather 90, iron 80, white steel ingot 70, white steel plate 45, metal parts 55. The size of a real dragon race is enormous, hence the resources consumed are much higher than those of normal armor. However, fortunately, all these 4 blueprints involve only white steel and ordinary materials. Fang Hao has enough of them at hand. After returning, the crafting process can begin, equipping the bone dragon. In addition, a good number of dragon crystals that were obtained in the cave can be put to use in expanding the number of bone dragons. This could considerably strengthen the fortress. The final dragon crystals and warfire coins are pretty straightforward. They are directly stored in the storage space. Using the Book of Lords, the blueprints are grouped. After giving a few instructions to Domina, Fang Hao leads his team onto the bone dragon, carrying the spoils of their expedition back to their territory. Upon returning to the fortress, it's already 3 in the afternoon. 20 bone dragons, their backs filled with spoils, land on the open ground in front of a lord's mansion, raising a great cloud of dust. "Master, you are back." Ira, along with some maids, rushes out to greet him. "Yes, I was gone for a day. Nothing happened to our territory, did it?" Fang Hao jumps off the bone dragon and pats Ira's head. "No, master, nothing happened to the territory, and Dr. Nelson did not come out either." Ira softly reports. The nearby territory is tightly surrounded by the undead. Strangers and beasts are attacked by the army as soon as they approach. This basically prevents problems, and any special situation in the other affiliate cities would be communicated with Fang Hao by using the sound transmitting shell, and thus one would not reach Ira. Good, as long as there were no problems. Fang Hao nods in satisfaction and then commands the others. "Angia, you supervise the skeletons to transport the pseudo-dragon corpses to the transformation pool. Nis 2, you guys remove the packs from the dragon's back." After Angia greeted Ira, she directed the skeletons to transport the pseudo-dragon corpses back to the transformation pool. Nis 2 and 10 others follow Fang Hao's command, cutting off the cords binding the beast's skin packs and removing them. 20 packs thrown onto the ground raise a huge noise, accompanied by the clinking sound of coins. "Open the packs." The packs are opened one by one, and a great number of gold coins and gemstones spill out, forming 20 small piles of gold. "Wow!" A chorus of gasps arises from the maids. The afternoon sunlight reflects off the gold coins, dazzlingly bright. The maids' eyes are wide opened and they stand, stunned, unable to believe what they're seeing. They've never seen so much money before. Actually, Fang Hao is not short of money either. But storing and carrying gold coins is a burden, so every time the amount reaches a certain level, they'll be sent to the Trade Alliance to be exchanged for Warfire cards. Warfire cards can contain a large amount, but they certainly do not have the impact of seeing mountains of gold coins. Human gold coins 750,000, silver coins 520,000, orc gold coins 1,150,000, silver coins 680,000, dwarf gold coins 320,000, silver coins 150,000, undead gold coins 450,000, silver coins 120,000, elf gold coins 30,000, silver coins 50,000, golden artifacts 200,000, silver artifacts 500,000, gemstone agates 3,240,000. With the system's enhancement, the quantities and types of items have been automatically tallied. There are quite a few types of currency. In addition to human, orc and undead money, there are also dwarven and elven currencies. He's seen dwarves at the Trade Alliance auction, but he has yet to meet the legendary elves. Ira, arrange for people to sort out these spoils. The coins will be exchanged for Warfire cards by Daljan when the time comes. The gemstones and gold and silver utensils can be sent straight to the basement. Fang Hao dictates gently. The gemstones can be used to make jewelry by the goldsmith. Gold and silver utensils will be checked again, and ones that are not useful will be sent to the coin mint to be recast into gold coins. "Yes, master." Ira claps her hands and tells the maids behind her, "Okay, stop standing there. Go and prepare some boxes and separate the coins and the gems." The maids recover from their shock and, following Ira's instructions, they bring some large boxes. They begin classifying the coins and gemstones. While the maids are busy, Fang Hao heads for the skeleton conversion field. From a distance, he sees Angia instruct the skeleton soldiers to throw the bodies of the pseudo-dragon guards into the transformation pool. Over 300 pseudo-dragon skeletons were being slowly consumed in the transformation pool, eventually unlocking new troops. "All right, everything is thrown in. I'm not needed here anymore, right? I'm going to play with Lori now," Angia says. "Go ahead, but remember to be back in time for dinner," Fang Hao advises. Oh, before long, Angia was seen riding her giant lizard, waving to Fang Hao as she gradually receded into the distance. 5 minutes later, the first pseudo-dragon guard was completely transformed, and a new type of soldier was also unlocked in the transformation field. Skeleton pseudo-dragon guard tier 6 faction. Undead racial traits. Undead, hollow skeleton, vulnerable to light. Emotional language skills. Keen senses. Magic resistance, bite, stinger innate abilities. Intermediate flight mastery. Intermediate hunting mastery. Emotional language. This unit can't speak but can share its emotions through sensations. Keen senses. This unit has an advantage in sensing and perceiving. Magic resistance. Magic resistance plus 15%. Bite, close range attack. lunges at target unit for a bite attack. Stinger, tail stinger attacking the target. Low resistance units may be poisoned or stunned. External interference can prematurely terminate the stun effect on the target. Note: skeleton units transformed from corpses still retain their features and attack methods from their previous lives. Fang Hao nodded. The attributes of the skeleton's pseudo-dragon were average. Nothing particularly outstanding, but they could replace the skeleton giant bats. The flying units went from being Tier 3 to Tier 6 troops. But when Fang Hao saw the recruitment conditions of the pseudo-dragon, the smile on his face immediately faded. Skeleton pseudo-dragon guard Tier 6, wriggling spine 6, death trace 3, dragon crystal 3. He could bear the first two materials. To recruit a flying unit that can only bite and sting, it actually requires 3 dragon crystals. Let alone the effect of the pseudo-dragon and giant bat isn't substantial. Even if they had some special skills, Fang Hao would not be willing to spend 3 dragon crystals to recruit them. Bloodstones and blood castles can be continuously eradicated, but they are easier to get than dragon crystals. The skeleton giant bats still offer the best cost-performance ratio. After checking the properties of the skeleton pseudo-dragon, Fang Hao continued to attend to his own affairs. He was here mainly to continue recruiting bone dragons. The dragon crystals awarded from the treasure cave and the treasure chests this time totaled 32. He planned to recruit them all into bone dragons. Bone dragon, wriggling spine 10, death trace 7, star silver 5, dragon crystal 10. He had a storage of death trace and star silver in the warehouse, fulfilling the requirements for recruitment. He adjusted the recruitment quantity to 3. Confirm recruitment. Multiplication of effects by 100 triggered, recruited bone dragons 303. Phew. In an instant, the sky darkened. 303 bone dragons appeared in midair, circling above Fang Hao. Go and stand by outside the city, Fang Hao loudly instructed. The bone dragons flapped their wings and flew towards the outskirts of the city. Fang Hao did not immediately leave the city, but went to the blacksmith's shop to gather all the blacksmiths and went out of the territory together. On the open ground outside the territory, in addition to the just recruited 303, there were 72 bone dragons that had been previously recruited. The remaining bone dragons were stationed in some affiliated territories and Bloody Fortress, assisting the Blackthorn in the fight. Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords, found the blueprint for dragon equipment, and began to manufacture. Multiplication of effects by 100 triggered. Obtain giant dragon's white steel helmet 404. Multiplication of effects by 100 triggered. Obtain giant dragon's white steel battle armor 404. Multiplication of effects by 100 triggered. Obtain giant dragon's white steel claw armor 404. Multiplication of effects by 100 triggered. Obtain giant dragon's white steel tail armor stinger 404. As the dragon's body was enormous, so was the dragon equipment, equally gargantuan and heavy. Pieces materialized out of thin air and fell on the ground, causing a thunderous sound. Kulin, you lead the team to equip these gears onto the bone dragons, Fang Hao instructed the blacksmith's team leader. Yes, sir, Kulin responded. The next day, after breakfast, Fang Hao had just bid farewell to the elderly clan leader of the Blackwood Cat tribe. He then saw the skeleton merchant Daljin, accompanied by a small figure, coming his way. Upon seeing Fang Hao, he politely bowed and announced, "My lord, Mr. Moru from the Trade Alliance has come to pay you a visit." Moru was a goblin cashier that Fang Hao knew. The goblins seemed small and comical, but they excelled in goblin technology and had keen minds. In the Trade Alliance, they often held high positions. Moru was a goblin cashier that Fang Hao was acquainted with. Last time, during the battle, Moru could be seen trailing behind the person in charge of the base, signifying his high status. Hearing Daljin's words, Fang Hao immediately smiled warmly and said, "Mr. Moru, please come in. Why didn't you notify me beforehand about your visit?" Moru entered the Lord's Hall, greeted with a smile. "Good morning, the esteemed Lord Fang Hao." In the past, Moru used to refer to Fang Hao as the young undead, but ever since he found out that Fang Hao had a dark gold level hero for protection, he dared not casually address a mighty lord. Maintaining respect towards the strong is a necessary condition for the goblins to survive on this continent. "Good morning, have a seat and let's chat." Fang Hao gestured for him to sit down. The petite Moru sat down on a chair and without wasting a moment, his smile faded, and he made clear his intention. "Mr. Fang Hao, I am here regarding the incident at the auction last time. The Trade Alliance has made a decision." Fang Hao had a hunch about Moru's purpose for visiting. After all, 3 days had passed, and given the efficiency of the trade alliance, it was high time a result was produced. Fang Hao nodded and asked, "So, what was the outcome?" "We from the trade alliance are deeply sorry for such a terrible incident occurring at our base. Chiral has been relieved of his leadership position, and the flower demon too will be awaited for further interrogation. By that time, the dreamy forest should be reaching out to you, trying to seek your forgiveness." Moru spoke clearly. The incident at the last auction didn't cause Fang Hao any loss. The goods he purchased were given for free, and his membership was upgraded to gold. That was the compensation the trade alliance offered to Fang Hao. The main purpose of Moru's visit today was to inform Fang Hao about the trade alliance's disposal methods regarding Chiral and the fairy clan. Fang Hao thought for a while and realized he didn't need to pick a fight with the trade alliance, especially since he would need to use this platform to sell his goods in the future. "All right, I am satisfied with the way the trade alliance has handled the matter, but I hope these two won't be let off by the trade alliance until I hear from the Dreamy Forest," said Fang Hao. "You can rest assured on that matter. We are equally outraged by the actions of the fairy clan," Moru solemnly said. "That's good." Both of them had achieved their desired outcomes, hence the atmosphere relaxed significantly afterwards. Fang Hao realized that the reason he was treated with such importance by the trade alliance, and even received compensation and an official apology after the incident, wasn't because the trade alliance was easygoing, but because of Rolana's status as a dark gold level hero. If Rolana hadn't been present at the time, and Fang Hao had only brought Demetrija and Angia, although they could have defeated Chiral, there would have been no chance of receiving compensation from the trade alliance nor a visit from Moru. At the end of the day, truth is based on strength. Fang Hao had the maid bring fruit wine, and Moru didn't hesitate to taste it. "By the way, Mr. Moru, is the Dreamy Forest where the fairy clan resides?" Fang Hao asked casually. The fairy clan is a rather rare race. Since they possess a purple hero and most of their troops have reached the 7th or 8th rank, they should be quite powerful. However, as his territory expanded, he only came across the fairy clan a couple of times at the Trade Alliance outpost. Fairy clan's Dreamy Forest is truly an interesting place, indeed. After drinking a glass of fruit wine, Moru continued to say, "When I was young, I was fortunate enough to visit the Dreamy Forest once. There's a small bridge at the entrance there. If you're a bad person, your footprints on the bridge would be black, but if you're a good person, the footprints would be blue. Quite interesting, wouldn't you agree?" "That is indeed interesting," Fang Hao curiously asked. "Then how do they distinguish good people from bad people? Is it based on the faction or faith?" "I'm not sure about that, but my footprints were blue, and they were warm and courteous to me." Moru laughed heartily. "Oh, come on, you're from the Trade Alliance. Even if your footprints were black, they wouldn't drive you away," Fang Hao retorted. Moru was stunned, and that was indeed the case. "Nevertheless," he added, "stepping on blue footprints is a good thing, isn't it? Who would want to be the bad guy?" "You're right." Fang Hao took a sip of wine and continued to ask, "The fairy clan seems to be in desperate need of the heart of a Sha. They were willing to take action within the outpost just to get the heart of a Sha." "I don't know about that. It's quite common that a fallen race, like the fairy clan, needs certain items to save their race from extinction." Moru glanced at Fang Hao and said in a low voice. It seemed that there were some things Moru did not wish to reveal. After all, the Trade Alliance had to maintain neutrality. Revealing information about the different races casually could result in serious consequences. Moru was quite talkative and showed no immediate intention of leaving. Fang Hao could tell that Moru was also trying to extract information from him. It seemed that the Trade Alliance was quite interested in this rising force of his. The two of them chatted until noon, when Fang Hao invited Moru to stay for lunch. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the Bloody Mountains, Core Holy Mountain. At the foot of the mountain, a 3 million strong undead army filled every inch of visible land. In the undead army camp, 3 trolls, their bodies covered in beast skins and painted with totems, lay on the ground. At the side, Blackthorn was drawing an array. Soon the array was completed. The throats of 3 cattle were slit, and their blood slowly flowed following the lines of the array, eventually pooling on the bodies. In the next moment, the corpses sat up abruptly. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Blackthorn asked, "You are now dead, and you must answer my question truthfully." "Yes." The troll responded mechanically. "How many trolls are there on Core Holy Mountain?" The troll answered, "Less than 500. Is Caius among them?" "Yes." "How many warriors did he bring?" Caius brought 200 guards. Boom. In the next moment, the corpse inflated and then exploded like a balloon. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. Subsequently, the second corpse came to life as blood flowed along the lines of the array. Blackthorn continued his questioning. Are there any heroes besides Caius? No. Is there really a deity in Korholy Mountain? The deity sleeps and punishes anyone who disturbs his rest. Have you seen this deity? No. Boom. The moment the corpse finished speaking, it exploded. This interrogation had plunged Blackthorn and others into deep thought. A corpse cannot lie, but it would recount what it perceived to be true, not necessarily the actual truth. The troll was confident in the existence of the deity, despite never seeing it before. This was highly suspicious, and the army had advanced so far by now. If the deity really existed, it should have appeared. The third corpse was then interrogated. After the third corpse sat up, Blackthorn asked directly, where does the deity of Korholy Mountain sleep? In the temple on the Holy Mountain. Has he ever come out? Blackthorn continued to ask. I don't know. Can he directly intervene in the war? The deity will help his believers achieve victory. With a bang, the third body exploded again. All three corpses had been interrogated. However, more questions had arisen. Whoosh! At this moment, a bone dragon descended from the sky. The orc scout jumped from the dragon's back and reported loudly, Commander, there is a man-made structure halfway up the mountain. The trolls have fortified defenses around it. The structure halfway up the mountain was the temple the troll mentioned. In essence, it was more like a huge cave carved into the mountain. Blackthorn pondered for a moment before issuing a low order, sound the war drums and prepare to attack. End the battle before night falls. Yes, Commander. The heroes and the orc messengers retreated after receiving their orders, and the deep sound of the war drums began to echo. A layer of faint light enveloped all the undead troops. Whether there was a deity or not, they had no way back now. If the enemy really had the strength to defeat their million-strong army, retreating now would make no difference. But if the deity was merely a ruse, just a rumor among the trolls, then they would end this battle before nightfall and claim the Bloody Mountains. They would send news of their victory to their lord. As the drumbeats quickened, the undead army began to move, slowly advancing towards the core mountain. The Korholy Mountain was steep and the stone stairs in the middle had been coated with a special fat by the trolls, making it as slippery as ice. It was almost impossible to ascend the mountain via these stairs. But Blackthorn and others were well prepared. An army of millions would not tussle with the enemy through a narrow path. When the command flag waved, a loud noise resonated from the foot of the mountain. Boom, boom, boom. Hundreds of dragonlock crossbows fired arrows attached to nets into the mountain. Layer by layer, they hum on the cliffs. From a distance, it looked like a fishnet stocking had been pulled over the mountain. The undead soldiers bit onto their weapons, their limbs moving like spiders as they began to ascend the rope mesh. In the blink of an eye, the cliff face was covered with skeletons. Faced with the ascending undead, the trolls were filled with despair. The densely packed undead filled the entire mountain, giving off an unprecedented oppressive feeling that was suffocating. Even the trolls who had already made up their minds to die began to tremble. Why exactly were there so many undead? Throw the stones. At that command, all the trolls started lifting the stones they'd gathered and fling them down. Boom! As the boulders fell down the mountain, they took down a row of undead soldiers. Seeing that their strategy was rather effective, all the trolls began to work hard on moving and throwing stones. Woo! Whoosh! Whoosh! Just when everyone's attention was focused on crushing the skeletons below, a howling sound was heard from the sky. Roar! Several bone dragons, clad in shining silver armor, spat out pillars of black light, raining down upon the troll troops. The trolls who were originally focused on throwing stones became enveloped by the beam of light. The next second, their flesh began to fall off, leaving behind skeletal remains. They rolled down the mountain. In an instant, dozens were killed, reducing the already small number. Nearly 100 bone dragons began to circle around the mountain. Some undead jumped off the dragons' backs, landing directly on the platform before the cave, fighting with the trolls. Caius stood alone on a platform to the right, a crossbow bolt drawn from the mountain in his hand. He threw it forward at the bone dragon. Tweak! The bolt penetrated the metal armor on the dragon's chest, making a sound of steel being squeezed and distorted. The bolt lodged in the bone dragon's rib cage, but it didn't cause any damage. Instead, the dragon breath that rushed towards him caused Caius's body to rot and wrinkle. Although he didn't suffer the same loss of flesh as the others, he was greatly affected. Caius threw out more axes. They were easily dodged by the bone dragon, which flew away. He was an orange hero-type warrior. Even level 10 soldiers were no match for him. But against this highly mobile, airborne bone dragon, Caius was rather helpless. The thrown crossbow bolt could cause some damage. But apart from the first attack, the bone dragon would deliberately dodge the remaining ones, making it difficult to hit the target. But the bone dragon's deadly breath could continue to breathe, continuously attacking below. This was the difference between the races. Seeing that there were not many good options, Caius had no choice but to order everyone to hide in the cavern. The trolls let out a series of low roars. They pushed down all the stone walls they were hiding behind. Rubble and rolling logs resulted in a massive landslide. The trolls, after knocking down their shields, all retreated back into the deep recesses of the cave, watching the bone dragons outside that kept circling, trying to breathe dragon breath into the cave. The undead army was still bravely climbing up. Soon, undead soldiers reached the waist of the mountain. They unsheathed the weapons clenched in their mouths and began to attack the cave. There was no fixed order, nor formation. Like crazy men, they rushed into the cave. Boom! What greeted the undead inside was the desperate resistance of the trolls. The skeleton warriors who had just rushed in. Before they could swing their swords, their heads were cut off by the trolls and kicked out of the cave. But in the rear, the white bone warriors kept pouring in. In the blink of an eye, the only passage in the front was filled with a white-boned army. "Make way!" Caius shouted, his right arm muscles bulging, his veins throbbing. The arm was full of explosive power. The next second, a powerful fist swung out. Boom! A loud boom and the potent gust of wind blasted out in a fan shape. The front was instantly a vacuum. Undead skeletons were blasted into bone dust and scattered around. But then, the open ground in the front was filled with undead again. They were unafraid of life or death, and kept attacking. Damn it! Caius cursed. He swung out punch after punch, knocking back the approaching undead. Caius relentlessly swung his fists, releasing bursts of energy. Skeleton warriors taken in the blast were instantly crushed to bits. But every time a batch of the undead was eliminated, the cave was promptly refilled with more. Endless undead streamed into the cave, launching fearless attacks at the trolls. Although it was a cave, it was artificially carved so that the distance between the stone walls on both sides was considerable. It resembled a broad corridor more than a cave. Caius was ferocious and unstoppable, but the other trolls didn't share his strength. Soon enough, the trolls defending the flanks began to suffer casualties. The formation was broken. Like a dam being released, skeleton warriors flooded into the ranks of the trolls, prompting an even fiercer slaughter. "People of Thunder Snake, what are you waiting for?" Caius shouted behind him. As Caius finished speaking, totem signals began to emerge from the trolls at the back of the line, illuminating with a faint blue glow. It was as if many dazzling thunder snakes were circling their bodies. These were the guardians of the troll temple, the Thunder Snake tribe. Despite the toughness of troll bodies, they lacked the ability to control elements. However, the Thunder Snake tribe broke this barrier. Through the faith in their totems, they sealed divine powers within their bodies, granting them temporary strength and control over thunder and lightning. The Thunder Snake members were empowered by their activated totems. Their bodies were surrounded by crackling electricity and their muscles swelled rapidly, filled with explosive power. "Caius, retreat. We can only hold out for 15 seconds, said a member of the Thunder Snake tribe. Immediately afterwards, they charged forward, fighting alongside the undead. Boom! The leading Thunder Snake troll punched the shield of a skeleton warrior. Electric arcs flashed upon the shield. Unleashing a massive force, he sent the skeleton warrior flying. The latter was reduced to a pile of bones as it hit the ground. The same scenes occurred in every corner of the cave. The trolls surrounded by electric arcs displayed noticeably improved strength and speed. Even more surprisingly, the effects of the lightning could chain and jump, simultaneously killing several skeletons. The cave was filled with piles of bones and the ground was dyed red with blood. Regrettably, the totem enhancement of the Thunder Snake tribe could only last for 15 seconds each time. When the effect of the lightning disappeared, they were instantly overwhelmed by the undead army. No killing was necessary, as they had already been trampled into meat paste. 2 hours. Huff, huff. Caius was panting heavily. He was the only survivor in the cave. Objects surrounded him, filled with bones and weapons. Similarly, Caius himself was severely injured. His armor was in tatters, and he was soaked in blood, resembling a blood man. If it weren't for his strength as an orange-ranked hero and the robust body of a troll, he would have died in the Undead siege. I know you're outside. Shall we talk? Caius, repelling the attacking undead, shouted towards the entrance of the cave. The undead's calculated attack, with the coordination of aerial and ground forces, there must be a commander. Sure enough, after sending out the message, a deep and hoarse voice came back from outside the cave. Chief Caius, at this point, what more do you have to say? Outside the cave, Blackthorn replied, but the attacking undead didn't pause and continued their relentless attack on Caius. Can I see your leader? Perhaps we can change the current situation. Force is never the only solution, Caius said while fighting off his attackers. It's strange to hear this coming from a troll, retorted Blackthorn. Caius ignored the sarcasm in his tone and continued. How about letting me see your leader? Maybe we can end this war. Blackthorn naturally understood Caius's implication. No one wants to die. He wants to surrender and compromise. But with the Bloodthroat tribe gone and most of the trolls in the Bloody Mountains massacred, how could such hatred be easily eradicated? Moreover, Caius did possess an immense strength. Never mind allowing him to meet Fang Hao, even their own heroes dared not confront Caius directly and instead had been attempting to wear him down with their swarm tactics. He had this clearly in mind. Without much hesitation, Blackthorn replied, Caius, you can talk to me. I am fully responsible for the matters in the Bloody Mountains. Caius immediately felt a sinking feeling. Without the possibility of negotiating with the enemy's leader, his bargaining power would be significantly lower, but his injuries didn't allow him to stall any longer. Facing the unending influx of undead, he grinded his teeth and said, Don't kill me. I'm an orange-ranked hero. As long as you bring me to your leader, you will earn merit. His identity as an orange-ranked hero was his only bargaining chip for survival. In this land, orange-ranked heroes were the top recruits for all forces. No leader could ignore an orange-ranked hero who offered allegiance. Unfortunately, the response he received was not what he hoped for. Our lord is very busy and fears there's no time to meet with Chief Caius. As soon as Blackthorn finished speaking, the type of soldiers storming the cave changed. Instead of a never-ending stream of skeleton warriors, there were now large skeleton trolls wielding massive shields. Caius's punch landed on the shield. A sound resounded like a drum being struck. The skeleton troll that was hit went flying. However, there was no mass death of warriors. Crash! The troll shield formation quickly broke apart. The sturdy and heavy shield surrounded Caius in the middle. From the gaps in the shields, sharp lances protruded, thrusting towards Caius from all sides. Caius swung his fists wildly, but his strength and stamina were rapidly declining with every passing moment. The blood gushing out caused his vision to blur. He knew he couldn't hold on for much longer. What do you want from me? I am the bravest of the trolls, a powerful orange hero. I can give you great benefits. What good will it do you to kill me? You'll gain nothing from killing me, roared Caius. His voice drowned out the sound of his fists beating against the shields, echoing throughout the cave. Yet, the tone from outside the cave remained calm. No, your corpse is worth more than you are now. What do you want? Caius roared. Blackthorn said, Enough. Your last words, Chief Caius, are a bit long. Welcome to the undying undead. With Blackthorn's words, the encirclement around Caius swiftly closed in. One lance after another pierced Caius's body. Blood soaked the ground red, and Caius helplessly kneeled on the ground. A sharp battle axe fell on his neck. Gurgle! His eyes bulging in fury, his head dropped and rolled to one side. As the battle ended, the cave fell silent once again. The undead soldiers who used to fight to the death remained stoned, waiting for the next command. Inside the cavernous hall of the cave, the bodies of undead and trolls strewed across the floor. Walking into here felt like entering hell. Blackthorn commanded the cleaning of the battlefield. The 2-meter-thick piles of white bones were cleared, the corpses of the trolls and the undead were separately disposed of. As the undead soldiers cleared the battlefield, Blackthorn came to the deceased Caius. The troll's bravest warrior was still kneeling at the time of his death. His head had merely rolled aside. Bending over, he picked up the head, his bony fingers gently closing the eyes. Bolton, Blackthorn called. From the rear, an armored pig-headed human, Bolton, quickly approached and bowed. Commander, what are your orders? The body of Caius, I am entrusting it to you. After the cleanup, send it to the Lord along with the other spoils of war, Blackthorn ordered. Yes, sir, replied Bolton. He summoned several orcs from behind, who carried Caius's body, along with the head, outside. The cave was nearly cleared. Blackthorn continued deeper into the cave with his men. Although it's called a cave, it was referred to as a corridor leading to the temple by the trolls. The trolls' living conditions were more primitive than humans, without palatial-like structures. As they delved deeper, patterns and combat scenes drawn in white line began to appear on the stone walls. The sun, lightning, these were the primary symbols in the patterns. In a picture depicting the hunting of a massive, bloated creature, someone had summoned a thunderstorm from the sky. It assisted the trolls in defeating the creature. And some trolls began to worship the thunder. About 3 to 4 minutes deep into the cave, there were no remaining trolls to be found. However, at the end of the cave was a massive bronze door. The trolls' casting technology might not have been perfect, so although there were carvings on the bronze door, the craftwork was somewhat blurry. It was hard to make out the patterns on it. "Sir, we need a key to open this door." Despite applying great force, the bronze door wouldn't budge, and a keyhole could be seen in the middle. It was clear that a key was needed to open this door. "Order some men to search through all the troll corpses. The key must be on them," commanded Blackthorn. The bodies of the trolls and the bones of the undead had been separated, so it should be easy to search. An orc quickly rushed in, excitedly presenting a bronze key to Blackthorn. "Sir, it was found." Open it," he already said. The key was inserted into the keyhole, and with the combined effort of the skeleton troll, the bronze door slowly opened. The interior scene was revealed to everyone. It was roughly a 200-square-foot room. Numerous nightstone chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and the walls were filled with bizarre, ancient runes. In the center was an ancient altar. In the center of the altar was a stone platform about the height of a person, on which lay a chunk of flesh the size of an adult bear. The flesh writhed slowly, seemingly still alive. Below the flesh, on the stone platform, was a groove that seemed to be collecting the flesh's blood. "Giant Wall, do you know what this is?" Blackthorn asked Giant Wall, who was beside him. Everyone turned their eyes to Giant Wall, hoping he could give a precise answer. However, Giant Wall simply shook his head slightly in the end. "I don't know what this is." Blackthorn also nodded slightly, not delving further into the matter without a clear answer. Blackthorn arranged for the chamber to be searched. After carefully avoiding the altar and the hunk of flesh in the center, a silver chest and a single-page map marking special locations were found in the secret room. As for the chandeliers on the ceiling and the wall lamps, no one dared to touch them. After reporting everything back, a second visit might be necessary. "All right, close the bronze door, let's leave." Blackthorn ordered again. The bronze door was shut once more. Blackthorn left some people behind and the main team began to head back to the north town. Inside the main city, after dinner, watching the maids frolicking in front of Fang Hao's mansion, he had stayed in his territory the entire day. Moru stayed until 3 o'clock before he left. If it was not for the need to report results to the Trade Alliance, Moru probably would have dined there too. At the same time, Fang Hao also learned a lot of information he was curious about from Moru. Just as he was about to go back to his room to rest, Nelson approached, followed by 2 skeleton warriors, jointly carrying a bone skeleton that was as clear as jade. "Lord, good evening." Seeing Nelson, Fang Hao gave a smile. "Good evening, Bachelor Nelson." Without small talk, Nelson continued, "My lord, this is the demon doll I crafted according to the notes. I need to explain how it operates." Fang Hao glanced at the skeleton beside him. Most of the skeleton was still the jade-like transparent bones, but the right arm of the skeleton was noticeably thicker, and the color was somewhat yellowish. Most notably were the large bat wings on its back. These wings originally belonged to the Red Duke, but after Rolana killed him, Fang Hao had people find and bring them back. This time, Nelson directly implanted them onto this body. It looked a bit misfit, but if it could fly, it would be quite nice. "Let's hear it," Fang Hao said. Nelson then explained to Fang Hao how to control the demon doll. There were 2 ways. One way is string manipulation. It can be understood as a puppet master, but the puppet and its master are connected by countless strings. Moreover, it requires a lot of coordination and long-term practice. Without a few years of work, it is difficult to accurately control the puppet. The second method was the Undead clan's God's Presence. God's Presence is a powerful ability of the Undead clan, and some even believe that this skill is very similar to the ability of divine descent of the believers of God. Nelson would inscribe a special rune on the doll's skull. It would allow Fang Hao to control the puppet with God's presence, achieving dual control of himself and the doll. This method would consume spiritual power exponentially, but the advantage is that it could be put into use immediately. Then let's use the second method. My fingers have never been nimble since I was a kid. Nelson showed no surprise at Fang Hao's choice. The demon notes only mentioned methods of controlling puppets through puppetry. However, Nelson added the method of controlling puppets through God's presence based on Fang Hao's abilities. Nelson was a supporting type hero. His rating as an orange hero was not because of his strong combat abilities. Instead, it was attributed to his vast knowledge and insights accumulated over countless years. As the number of high-level heroes in the territory increased, more and more high-level heroes joined them. No one could shake Nelson's status in the territory. Besides Fang Hao, Nelson was the most respected figure. Sir, this set of runes is similar to the giant spirit totem on your back. You need to drop a drop of blood in the center of the runes, said Nelson. There was a small round rune at the puppet's brow. This central rune connected with all the other runes on the puppet's body. Fang Hao didn't hesitate, pulling out his light feather short sword and gently pricking his index finger on the tip. A drop of blood was dripped onto the puppet's brow. The next moment, the blood rapidly flowed along the runes and was quickly absorbed, disappearing without a trace. However, Fang Hao could clearly feel a difference. It was like the sensation he had just after the God of Giant Spirit tattoo was finished. He could clearly feel a connection to the puppet in front of him, as if a new skill had been added to his skill bar. He attempted to use God's presence on the puppet. Then the puppet's body, held up by two skeleton warriors, suddenly trembled. It immediately broke free of its restraints and stood up. At the same time, Fang Hao's mind was filled with the puppet's perspective. He could even see himself through the puppet's eyes. This way of observing himself was more realistic than looking in the mirror. He continued to experiment with moving forward, lifting his arms, and flapping the bat wings on his back. The puppet started to slowly rise and circled in the air. Before, Fang Hao had controlled skeleton giant bat, flying in the sky. Although the experience was average, it laid a good foundation for this time controlling the puppet's flight. Soon, he became familiar with the flying maneuvers, able to stop abruptly in the air and fly through obstacles smoothly. Lord, how does it feel? Nelson asked. It's not bad, Fang Hao answered, taking a step forward, but felt empty beneath his feet and nearly fell. He was not yet familiar with this kind of multitasking, controlling both his body and the puppet at the same time. When he focused on the puppet, he tended to neglect his own movements. Just like what just happened, he stumbled and nearly fell. But it's not a big problem. With practice and familiarity, he could get used to this type of control. Besides, he wouldn't use the puppet and himself at the same time very often. This was easier than spending a few years practicing puppetry. Once you are more familiar with it, it's fine. This puppet has its unique features. In the future, you can replace it with more advanced limbs you obtain. Nelson continued. Fang Hao nodded in understanding. This method of putting together corpses to gain power was rare, but it was undoubtedly simple and useful. All right, I understand, Fang Hao answered. He controlled the puppet to land next to him and began to check its attributes. Demon doll category, puppet physical strength, level 5 strength abilities, Bachelor of Light, Chosen of Light, Purification Aura, Healing, Blade of Judgment, Full Throw, Flight, Gate of Demon, Bachelor of Light. The use of light magic reduces the cost of magic by 20%. Chosen of Light, when using light-type positive state magic, it increases self-attack and defense by 2%. Purification Aura, defense increased by 5%. When activated, it can remove negative status from target units. Healing, heals allied living creatures and causes damage to undead, demons, and dark creatures. Blade of Judgment, increases self-attack power by 20%. Full Throw, increases weapon throwing damage by 10% and throwing distance by 20%. Flight, this unit can freely fly in the sky. Gate of Demon, summons a teleportation gate for 10 seconds, can be used for regional transition. Description, who can resist a toy that can accompany you and possesses many abilities? Seeing the puppet's attributes, Fang Hao was surprised. An item that was crafted actually possessed abilities not inferior to those of a hero. Furthermore, the puppet's physical strength had reached level 5. You should know that blue plate armor only had a defensive force of level 3. A set of armor would only reach level 4. Level 5 was comparable to a piece of purple defensive gear. Bachelor of Light and Chosen of Light were clearly attributes of the church. They could enhance the effect of light-based skills. Purification aura had the effect of dispelling negative attributes. Healing could be used for healing or as an attack skill, causing damage to dark and undead creatures. And Blade of Judgment would increase the doll's attack power, making it capable of both healing and attacking. With this puppet, he wouldn't have to worry about getting injured in the future. The skillful throw came from the orc arm, improving throwing abilities. Flight came from bat wings, but the most delightful part was the Gate of Demons skill. After these few times of understanding, he realized demons had a high mastery of spatial techniques. The demonic space in the Book of Lords, where items can be stored, is also a storage space created by utilizing spatial technology. The Gate of Demon, on the other hand, is a more advanced technology. Fang Hao thought of the demonic space used for storing items. Immediately, another problem occurred to him. If the demon doll could be put into the demonic space or not. It is known that the demonic space can't store living entities or troops. In some sense, the demon doll might not belong to either of these categories. If it could be stored in the demonic space, then he could always carry it with him, thereby adding a new life-saving trump card for himself. Upon thinking this, he immediately tried it. With a thought, the puppet before his eyes vanished instantly, and the next second, it was already stored in the storage space. It really could be put in there. In this way, he could carry it with him. Even if he went to a human city, he would no longer need to have a skeleton following him around. He selected the puppet from the storage space of the Book of Lords and summoned the demon doll again to stand in front of Fang Hao. Sir, it requires more practice and you will become more proficient with time. Nelson sat on the side, quietly watching Fang Hao get accustomed to the puppet. This is much simpler than puppetry technique. Fang Hao said with a smile. All right, sir, go on and practice. If there is nothing else, I should go back now. Nelson got up, intending to return to the Viscera Museum. Fang Hao quickly stopped him. Wait a moment. Sir, is there anything else? I will first upgrade the Viscera Museum, said Fang Hao. The manor was upgraded to Stone Castle, and the Viscera Museum also met the conditions for upgrading. They put away the puppet and directly arrived at the Viscera Museum. Viscera Museum. Wood 25,000, stone 20,000, stone bricks 12,000, damp rope 8,500, leather 1,600, shadowstone 20, death trace 15. The consumption of materials was quite high, but it was still sufficient. He straightaway chose to upgrade it. A glow enveloped the building, expanding it. Half an hour later, the entire building was completed. The Viscera Museum occupied a larger area, and the original flat floor had 2 additional floors. The entire building was made of stone with patterns and reliefs related to the undead. Viscera Museum category, special building viscera jars documented. Revival lightning speed killing proficiency recruitment available. Priest, 1 wriggling spine, 1 death's trace. Note, by placing viscera jars that have stored various energies here, powerful abilities can be granted to troops and special weapons can be made. Materials needed for upgrade. Sturdy wood 8,000. Stone bricks 7,500, precision work stone bricks 2,000, cast iron pieces 200, fine iron 100, metal parts 1,200, mithril 50, shadowstone 50, death's trace 30. After the Viscera Museum was upgraded, the new feature was the ability to recruit priests. By the name, it should be a talent in the funeral industry. Fang Hao directly recruited. 100-fold amplification effect triggered. Recruited 101 priests. In an instant, 101 skeleton priests clad in long robes appeared in front of Fang Hao and Nelson. After scanning their surroundings, all of their eyes settled on Fang Hao. They quickly stepped forward, saluted and said, "Greetings, sir." Like Nelson, they also possessed wisdom. Fang Hao nodded. "Welcome to our team. From today onwards, you will take orders and arrangements from the scholar Nelson." "Yes, sir." The priests looked at Nelson again and continued their salutations. "Scholar Nelson. I need some preservative materials. Go prepare some." Nelson didn't hold back and directly ordered. "Yes, scholar." The priests immediately dispersed and began to work. Watching the departing priests, Fang Hao continued to ask, "Do we have enough manpower? Shall we recruit more?" Nelson shook his head. "No need for now. We can recruit more when we need them." "Oh, all right." Nelson left, and Fang Hao continued to control and get familiar with the puppet. After putting clothes and equipment on the puppet, and attaching the wooden mask on its face, except for the empty-looking arms and legs without muscles, it didn't look like a skeleton puppet. 2 hours of continuous training passed. The night was deep and quiet, and due to the consumption of spiritual power, Fang Hao's head was starting to throb. He put away the puppet and went back to his room to sleep. The next day, in the early morning, as Fang Hao woke up from his sleep, he received good news from Blackthorn. The entire Bloody Mountain range had been completely occupied. The trolls who surrendered were, under the arrangements of the female troll Stella, began to settle in the North Town. In the next few days, they started to gradually resume production and return to their normal lives. This was good news, as they would no longer need to worry about the dangers to the north of their territory. Moreover, the Bloody Mountain range was rich with numerous veins of ore, which could be mined for more basic materials. After hearing Blackthorn's news, he immediately sat up from bed. After breakfast, at 8 a.m., Bolton, riding on the bone dragon, landed in front of the Lord's mansion. Seeing Fang Hao enjoying the sun, he jumped straight off the dragon. Lord Bolton saluted and said. Fang Hao sat up. Bolton continued, My lord, the battle in the Bloody Highlands has been won. Blackthorn ordered me to bring back Caius's body and the spoils of war first. With that, he unloaded all the items from the dragon's back. Apart from the dismembered Caius, there was also a silver chest and a large amount of scavenged gold and silver currency. These were all spoils of war that Blackthorn had gathered and brought back with Bolton to give to Fang Hao. Good, well done. Fang Hao nodded, and then instructed a maid, Go and get Scholar Nelson. Tell him we have a new hero's body that needs to be dealt with. The maid acknowledged his words and quickly left, while Fang Hao went straight to the silver chest. He directly opened the chest. Obtained, Curse Thunder Totem Scroll Blue, Iron Armor Fist Blueprint Blue, 12 Troll Stones, and 76 Warfire Coins. Curse Thunder Totem Category, Scroll Description, records the method for drawing the Curse Thunder Totem. This was the second time Fang Hao saw a totem scroll. He himself already had a body of the giant spirit totem tattoo on his body, and in battle, it demonstrated high combat ability. However, the body of the giant spirit was a purple scroll, the reward in front of him was blue, and the level was much lower. The second blueprint was called Iron Armor Fist. Iron Armor Fist. Iron 3. Cast Iron Block 2, Leather 3. Description. Iron Armor Fist commonly used by those skilled at close combat. The only one in the territory who excelled at hand-to-hand combat was Angia. But Angia's Tiger's Claw was also of blue quality. If both items were of the same quality, then there was no need for it. Fang Hao had always wanted to change her weapon to a better one, but the Tiger's Claw and the Fist Armor were considered unpopular weapons here. They were rarely sold, and thus, few blacksmiths were willing to forge them. He put away the blueprint and immediately stashed the scroll as well. My lord, this map was found in the temple on Kor Holy Mountain. Also, in the temple, we discovered an altar and a wriggling piece of flesh. Commander Blackthorn said that the piece of flesh might be an organ, and suggested you to look at it when you have time. Bolton said, as he handed over a single-page map. Map, Thunder Temple Category, single-page map description. A map that records the target location. Using the Book of Lords to record it, he could see the location marked on the map. Upon looking, he realized that this location had been recorded before. It was the map of the desolate battlefield that Dong Jiayu gave him. And the Thunder Temple was a location in the desolate battlefield. This was quite a coincidence. As Fang Hao was examining the blueprint, Nelson came over with 6 funeral priests. My lord. Nelson and his men saluted Fang Hao. You guys first take away this body. And Nelson, come with me to the Bloody Mountain range later. There might be a creature's organ that can be sealed there. Fang Hao nodded and said, All right, my lord. Nelson responded. Then, he had the funeral priests behind him carry Caius's body to the Viscera Museum. Soon everyone was ready. Nelson, accompanied by 6 funeral priests, will go with Fang Hao to the North Town city of the Trolls. And the task of guarding the territory was given to Angia. Just as well, early in the morning, she was still in bed, and it was a bit hard to get her up. The hero accompanying them was Demetrija, an orange hero whose power was sufficient to protect Fang Hao's safety. Everything was ready. Fang Hao directly released the demon doll, initiating demon teleportation. Teleportation, however, was not unrestricted, requiring confirmation of the teleportation location from the map in the Book of Lords. Locations unrecorded could not be used for teleportation. On the map, North Town City was confirmed. The doll swung both arms forward, and a dark red magical screen immediately appeared. Although it was the first time using it, there should be no issues. The teleportation gate lasted for 10 seconds, in which Fang Hao had Nelson and Demetriju walk into the portal. Only after those few people entered did Fang Hao and the doll enter the screen at the last moment. Upon restoring their visibility, they found themselves in the clan leaders' hall in North Town City. Around the screen, a large number of undead soldiers were gathered. It seemed that the sudden appearance of the screen had made everyone at the scene very tense. As soon as Blackthorn recognized Fang Hao and Nelson, he immediately withdrew the soldiers. He stepped forward to greet them respectfully. Lord, Mr. Nelson, Lord Demetrij. Everyone paid their respects one by one. There were still many people in the hall at this time. Blackthorn, Black Sword, the female troll Stella, and several trolls looking dispirited. Managing a city with only Stella, a single troll, was not possible. Therefore, among the surrendered trolls, some manageable trolls were also chosen to jointly govern the rest of the trolls. Well, Blackthorn, Black Sword, and Petty, you all have done an excellent job, and all of you will be rewarded in time. Fang Hao did not immediately mention the matter of the meat piece, but instead first expressed his recognition of their merits. Even if the loyalty of the skeleton heroes had reached 100%, still, rewards should be given according to one's contributions. These were what Blackthorn and others deserved, and the rest of the trolls and orcs were all watching closely. Thank you, my lord, they all saluted. Fang Hao directly walked to the main seat, sat down and asked, "What's the situation in North Town City?" Upon hearing this, the eyes of Blackthorn and others fell on Stella, who was standing at the side. The female troll Stella had undergone significant changes from before. She was dressed in a long skirt made of leather and linen, standing at the head position of the trolls' camp, beginning to resemble the figure of a leader. Stella took a step forward, knelt on the ground, and said, "My lord, North Town City now accommodates over 74,000 troll captives. According to the plan, 3 stone mining sites and 2 mines will start operations tomorrow, and the remaining mines will gradually resume production." The whole Blood Mountain range now had only these 70,000 trolls remaining in North Town City. Most of the others had already died under the Undead's blades, or had been converted in the transformation pool. These 70,000 surrendered trolls, called the citizens of the city, were in fact prisoners and slaves. The power to grant life or death was all in the hands of Fang Hao and his men. Below there were 12 trolls, selected to manage the city. Hearing Stella and the human leaders above discussing their tribe's matters, the trolls' hearts instantly leaped up. They understood that the man sitting above was no longer a food reserve for trolls, but their lord who held the power of their life and death. The entire hall quieted down instantly. Trolls were uneasy, with some starting to sweat profusely and tremble uncontrollably in their self-imaginary situation. Fang Hao slightly nodded, and the atmosphere eased significantly. He didn't need a city populated only by the undead and the deceased. The restoration of trolls' production and normal life was what North Town City needed to do. Good. While resuming production, do not forget about maintaining order in the city. The old ways and styles of the trolls need to be completely eradicated. Anyone dares to rob women and food by force, immediately throw them into the transformation pool. Blackthorn, you must also supervise this, Fang Hao said solemnly. It was not Fang Hao overstating. The lives of trolls were even more savage and open than those of the orcs. Robbing others of their women and food came down to who was stronger and had greater abilities. Fang Hao wanted to establish a more stable order, so he had to break away from the old characteristics of the trolls. "Yes, my lord," answered Blackthorn. Stella also said, "Rest assured, my lord. I will do it well." Fang Hao acknowledged. After inquiring about North Town City's situation, Fang Hao then proceeded to address the news Bolton brought back. "Blackthorn, you said you found a living piece of flesh on Korholy Mountain." Fang Hao looked at Blackthorn. "Yes, my lord, it is the troll temple there. The item being worshipped inside is a piece of flesh the size of an adult bear, and it is squirming," Blackthorn replied. "Stella, do you know what this flesh is?" The troll temple was dedicated to the giant spirit god that the trolls have been passing by word of mouth. Stella pondered for a moment and responded in a soft voice, "My lord, according to the rumors of our tribe, the temple is where the giant spirit god slumbers. If it means that it's just a piece of meat inside, then it proves that the giant spirit god is a lie. No one had ever seen the real giant spirit god. So a long time ago, Rumors started spreading amongst the trolls that the giant spirit god was nothing but a lie. But the Bloodthroat clan was ruthless and powerful, so no one dared to question it directly, nor did anyone try to verify the rumor. Now, upon hearing Fang Hao mention there was no dormant giant spirit god within the temple, Stella felt even more sure that this was a lie. But Fang Hao didn't see it that way, because when he first discovered Rolana's heart, it also separated from the body. Since Blackthorn mentioned life characteristics, it could be the organ of some powerful creature. He did not exclude the true association with the giant spirit god. What about you? Fang Hao asked the trolls below. The trolls instantly murmured, but the answers given were much alike. If there's no giant spirit god, then it is a story concocted by the Bloodthroat tribe, just to take more tributes from them. Seeing no news can be asked from them, Fang Hao gave up pursuing this line of questioning. He spoke to Blackthorn, "Prepare the bone dragon, let's go take a look together." "Yes, Lord." Arriving at Core Holy Mountain, the bone dragon landed the crowd before the temple on the mountainside. This temple of the trolls, built within such a rugged cave, was beyond Fang Hao's expectation. Know this, the temples built by humanity, even if not as grand as palaces, are very clean and filled with various sacred auras. The construction scale and surroundings here are rather poor. Following Blackthorn's lead, they went deep into the cave, pulled out a key and opened the bronze door. They saw the scene inside the stone chamber. It was indeed a chunk of flesh, like a piece of beef on a cutting board, a giant piece. The chunk of flesh, like a heart, was rhythmically constricting, probably a living creature. Below the flesh was a round altar. From the previous tomb of the dragon, a similar altar was spotted. "Lord, this is the chunk of flesh I told you about," Blackthorn said. Fang Hao took out the demon doll, controlling it to enter the stone chamber, and approached the tissue closer. As he got closer, the characteristics of the object appeared in front of Fang Hao. Heart of Storm type, organ description. The prosperity of the race had faded away long ago, and the scattered tribes could only pray to their progeny of God. Not much information was revealed. Seemingly, this tissue was actually a heart, but only part of one. From this, you can imagine how vast the original creature was. The master of this heart is the sacred progeny. After checking the attributes and ensuring no danger, Fang Hao turned to Nelson, who was standing beside him, and asked, "Bachelor Nelson, does this meet the condition for putting into a viscera jar?" "Yes, my lord." Saying that, Nelson took 6 priests and went into the stone chamber. After a round of inspection, he came out again. "There are indeed organs of powerful creatures, Lord. The sealing ceremony will take some time, approximately about 5 days." "Very well." Fang Hao continued speaking to Blackthorn. "Arrange personnel to guard this place, preventing anyone from disturbing Bachelor Nelson's work." "Yes, my lord." Blackthorn complied and started gathering a large force, surrounding Core Holy Mountain. No one, be it ground forces or in the air, could interfere with Nelson and others who were conducting the ceremony. Having left the place to Nelson, Fang Hao and the others returned to the town north. 5 in the afternoon, the clan leader hall. Fang Hao sat at the head. The people below have already filled the place. Besides Blackthorn and Giant Wall, the heroes and the orcs who participated in the battle worked as scouts and messengers. For this war, they deployed an army of up to 3.5 million. Hence, a lot of people from the northern orc tribe also came. Those here were the leaders or representatives of the various climes. According to tradition, if you win the war, a reward is given. Fang Hao stood, made a brief opening remark, and went straight to the point to commend the heroes and soldiers who performed specially in this battle. "Blackthorn, as the general of this war, you led well and contributed much. You are awarded 10,000 warfire coin, and funds will be allocated from your territory to forge more exquisite equipment for you," Fang Hao stated. Blackthorn and others, although they were skeleton heroes, but considering their wisdom and ability to think independently, they also spent money to buy the items they needed. Therefore, while promising to create equipment, he also awarded warfire coins. "Thank you, my lord." Blackthorn respectfully thanked, showing little emotional fluctuation. The troll campaigners who attended this award ceremony, however, experienced a significant disturbance. They barely believed their ears. He was directly awarded 10,000 warfire coins. It's already an astronomical number. Contrarily, the orc campaigners, who appeared rather calm, looked at the somewhat disturbed trolls with a gaze like observing the countryside people. During the last Crescent Heights attack, Fang Hao awarded Demetrija 10,000 warfire coins. At that time, the orcs shared the same reaction as the trolls now. Seeing it for the second time, it seemed much calmer. Silence. Female orc Stellar reprimanded, then only the entire hall quieted down. Fang Hao continued the commendation. Black sword, giant wall, heavy arrow. The three of you, as vice general of the campaign, also contributed significantly. Each of you is awarded 5,000 warfire coins. The domain will fund to forge new equipment for you. Black Sword was left at Core Holy Mountain, leading forces to protect Nelson and several funeral priests. Giant Wall and Heavy Arrow stepped forward and said in a low voice, "Thank you, my lord." Once the rewarding of heroes was completed, Fang Hao's gaze fell upon Pigman's Petty. Petty, the clan leader of the Pigman clan, was responsible for assembling all orcs for this battle. During the fight, the Bloody Fort and the transport of resources from Bijan City were also up to Petty. This time, she had really put in a great deal of effort. "Petty, my lord." Petty stepped forward. Unlike Blackthorn and the others, she had signed a slave contract with Fang Hao, so her salute was even more deferential and modest. In this battle, the Pigman village has done an excellent job in providing assistance. You will be rewarded with 8,000 beast head gold and a Thunder Curse totem scroll. Upon hearing that, Petty expressed her gratitude loudly. "Thank you, my lord." All the orcs looked at Petty and the Pigman with envy. Fang Hao's individual reward carried a significant meaning. It seemed that in the future, the various scattered orc tribes would likely look to the Pigman village as their leader. All other orc villages that participated in this battle will be awarded 5,000 beast head gold. In addition, your villages will receive support in terms of territory resources. Fang Hao rewarded the remaining orcs collectively. This time, since there were too many orcs participating, Fang Hao could only reward the villages as a whole, rather than individuals. Otherwise, granting rewards individually would be pretty tough. "Thank you, my lord." All the orcs saluted in unison, based on the 5:1 exchange rate of beasthead gold and warfire coins. That was equivalent to 1,000 warfire coins. Although many people were involved, distributing the reward to the village would still allow the village to flourish. Finally, Fang Hao's gaze landed on the female troll, Stella. Stella was the first troll to surrender, and she had provided many valuable pieces of information for this battle. Fang Hao could reward Stella, but doing so would give Stella the image of a traitor among the trolls. He still needed Stella to manage the trolls for him. After thinking for a while, he said to Stella, "Stella, according to our agreement, you've guaranteed the lives of these trolls. Therefore, there is no reward for you this time. However, if you manage well in the future, I will reward you separately." Stella paused for a moment and then understood Fang Hao's intention. She quickly got up, knelt down, and said, "Thank you, my lord, for your trust. Thank you for sparing our lives." Fang Hao nodded slightly. The other trolls, hearing their conversation, also understood the meaning. It seemed that they had survived in the presence of the undead, because Stella and this lord had reached some sort of agreement not to kill them. The trolls, who had previously opposed Stella being a woman, started to change their perspective. They appeared a bit less indifferent. With the end of the awards ceremony, the feast began. Food and dishes were brought in, and everyone was celebrating the victory of the battle, enjoying the abundant food. From the main seat, people came forward to flatter Fang Hao, to which he responded with a smile. Meanwhile, in a cave within the chaotic stone forest of the Bloody Mountain Range, the farmers were huddled around a campfire, cooking food. In the depths of the cave, Zhu Yang pulled out the iron sword from his waist and carved a 15 on the wall. It was their 15th day hiding in the cave. With the preparations they had made in advance and the exchange function of the Book of Lords, they had managed to hold on till now. "Sir, the gruel is ready. We can eat now," one of the farmers said. "All right." Zhu Yang came over and sat down by the fire. "Sir, I went near the Bloodthroat tribe yesterday. There are fewer undead now. I think we can plan to get out," another villager said. Although some doubted if the outside had been entirely occupied by the undead, Zhu Yang knew that most parts out there were still human cities. Otherwise, the other lords wouldn't be chatting so freely every day. Zhu Yang pondered for a while. "All right, we can scout the path when it gets light. If there's a chance, we'll all escape together." "Yes, sir." After a few brief exchanges, silence fell again. Everyone was eating their food in silence. During the night, Fang Hao used demon teleportation to return to his territory. Lying lazily in the hot spring, Ira gently massaged his shoulders, relaxing his muscles. Just as Fang Hao was enjoying the comfortable massage, the Book of Lords suddenly received a private message. Fang Hao opened it, finding that it was a private message from Qiu Shang. Because Fang Hao had blacklisted him, which restricted him from buying items that Fang Hao was selling, Qiu Shang could only send a private message. However, they could still see each other's chat messages in the channel. Fang Hao, this is Qiu Shang. I am now ordering you, as the elder of the Tenpeng Alliance, to donate 10,000 green weapons, 10,000 sets of green equipment, and 100,000 units of food to the Alliance free of charge. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. Fang Hao's eyebrows slightly furrowed. This guy must be out of his mind. Ever since the last tile incident, Qiu Shang's popularity in the channel had completely hit rock bottom. All individuals in the channel boycotted his tiles and refused to buy anything from him. Unexpectedly, Qiu Shang joined the Tenpeng Alliance and even became an elder. It seems that the people in the Tenpeng Alliance also needed tiles for their upgrades, which was why they let Qiu Shang join. However, Fang Hao was a bit puzzled. Even though Qiu Shang harbored resentment towards him, many people in the Tenpeng Alliance were on his blacklist. It's hard to believe that Qiu Shang was foolish enough to contact him privately and spout such delusions, demanding thousands of green equipment and hundreds of thousands of food units right off the bat. Has he lost his mind? Fang Hao didn't want to waste his time on someone like Qiu Shang, so he didn't reply and directly closed the chat channel. He thought that would be the end of it. But to his surprise, the other party sent another message 10 minutes later. If you're not afraid of us, don't you worry about your subsidiary territories. Your little girlfriend Dong Jiayu, for example. As long as you provide equipment to the Alliance on time, the Tenpeng Alliance can grant you the status of an elder. If you fail to understand the situation and refuse, don't blame us for being ruthless. Upon seeing the message sent by Qiu Shang, Fang Hao's brows instantly furrowed. He immediately contacted Dong Jiayu in private to confirm her safety. Dong Jiayu quickly responded, saying she didn't notice any dangers, but she did encounter a nearby lord recently, although there was no conflict. It seemed that Dong Jiayu was still unaware that she was being targeted. Fang Hao informed Dong Jiayu about the Tenpeng Alliance situation, advising her to stay within the city for the next few days, and to be careful. Dong Jiayu said she understood. After instructing Dong Jiayu, Fang Hao also replied to Qiu Shang. Qiu Shang, you don't have the guts. It must be Yu Tenpeng who made you say these things. Tell him to avoid seeking his own death. Upon reading the message from Fang Hao, Qiu Shang felt a sudden chill up his spine. Fang Hao was not someone to mess with, and he definitely had the capability to kill. However, on second thought, the other party had no idea where his territory was, so there was nothing to fear. And those targeting Dong Jiayu were others from the Alliance. There was no way they could trace it back to him. Once Qiu Shang was certain he was safe, he immediately switched back to being arrogant. Good, very good. Opposing our alliance, you will soon know the consequences. Fang Hao didn't respond further, he directly closed the chat channel. Dong Jiayu was indeed quite far from the main city. She needed to replan for safety and development. But it wasn't urgent. He would rearrange everything tomorrow morning. After finishing the private chat with Fang Hao, Qiu Shang immediately turned to his side and said, "Boss, what should we do next?" Fang Hao was not scared at all. He seemed quite confident in his abilities. At Qiu Shang's side was the hierarch of the Tenpeng Alliance, Yu Tenpeng. Qiu Shang was simply Yu Tenpeng's mouthpiece. HMPH. This Fang Hao really doesn't know his place. Yu Tenpeng's face also turned somber. The Tenpeng Alliance had been exceedingly active in the region recently. It was in no way an overstatement to say that it was the top alliance. Nobody dared to disrespect the Tenpeng Alliance. But Fang Hao, his responses showed no fear and he didn't give a damn about the Tenpeng Alliance. "Yeah, boss, what should we do next?" Qiu Shang kept asking. While conversing with Fang Hao, Qiu Shang was feeling quite nervous himself. If it wasn't for Yu Tenpeng watching, he wouldn't dare to be so tough. After thinking for a moment, a hint of ruthlessness flashed through Yu Tenpeng's eyes. "Tomorrow, tell Song Yu to attack Dong Jiayu. Force her to disclose Fang Hao's territorial location." Everyone in the entire region knew that Fang Hao sold a large number of weapons, equipment and daily necessities every day. Among them were many high-quality green equipment, so the grudges between them were not sufficient for Yu Tenpeng to want to kill Fang Hao. but the wealth Fang Hao possessed was enough to tantalize Yu Tanpeng. If they could eliminate Fang Hao and seize all his resources, not only would the Chanpeng alliance remain the top alliance, he himself would also become the region's strongest individual. Sure, boss. I'll inform them once I get back. I won't disturb your rest anymore. Qiu Zhai Shang continued. Yu Tanpeng nodded and walked into his own room. Qiu Zhai Shang teleported to his territory using the alliance's building. After arriving at his lord's mansion, he arranged for the servants to prepare dinner and began talking to member Song Yu while eating. Song Yu happened to find Dong Jiayu's territory by chance. Dong Jiayu had berated those who framed Fang Hao on the regional channel more than once. Everyone assumed that they knew each other and were very close. These days, although Song Yu hadn't shown his face, he had arranged for a large group of scouts to observe the situation near Dong Jiayu's territory, preparing for the attack. He didn't hold a grudge against Dong Jiayu or Fang Hao, but the development of the Tanpeng alliance was rapid and it was the top alliance in the region. Being able to align himself with it, he saw great advantages for his own territory's development. Plus, the alliance had promised him, if this matter was successful, they would support his territory and promote him to be one of the core members of the alliance. This was an offer Song Yu couldn't refuse. Qiu Zhai Shang sent a message of attack to Song Yu, and received a reply soon after. All right, I've arranged scouts these few days. She doesn't have any special military forces, so taking her down won't be an issue. Qiu Zhai Shang replied, Alliance Master Yu wants Fang Hao's territory to be near yours. This being close to me, am I in danger? Alliance Master Yu has everything planned. As long as we know the location, other people will be dispatched to seize Fang Hao's territory. What are you worried about? Oh, that makes sense. Then I'll start the alliance building first thing tomorrow morning. Once the people are gathered, we'll attack. Sounds good. After a brief exchange, a whole plan targeting Fang Hao was drafted. Next day, early morning, Fang Hao had just woken up from his sleep when he received a series of private messages from people like Zhang Bin, Fu Lei, and a few others who have had dealings with him. Without exception, they all asked him to look at the regional channel. Fang Hao immediately opened the regional channel to check the messages inside. Just as he entered, someone said, I don't know who's more formidable, Fang Hao or the Tanpeng Alliance. I guess Fang Hao is more powerful. He sells so many pieces of gear every day. He surely has a lot of troops. Pay attention. The Tanpeng Alliance is going after Dong Jiayu this time, not Fang Hao. While Fang Hao has many troops, Dong Jiayu may not have as many. Who is Dong Jiayu? Weren't they going after Fang Hao? Hey, it's none of your business. All you need to know is that Dong Jiayu is subordinate to Fang Hao. I think Fang Hao is in danger. The Tanpeng Alliance can quickly gather a lot of manpower. I bet on the Tanpeng Alliance. I bet on Fang Hao. While people in the regional channel were in heated discussions, Fang Hao scrolled up the chat record to find the origin of the discussion. He discovered that the Tanpeng Alliance had posted a message in the regional channel early in the morning, claiming that Dong Jiayu, a subordinate of Fang Hao, attacked their alliance member Song Yu by surprise, almost costing him his life. After a series of criticisms, the Tanpeng Alliance officially declared war on Fang Hao, and the first attack was directed at Dong Jiayu. This message set the regional channel ablaze first thing in the morning. The number one person and the number one alliance in the region. Their confrontation could be said to be the biggest event among the Transmigrators. Ding! At this time, Dong Jiayu also sent a message. Brother Hao, I don't know the Song Yu, let alone attacked him, Dong Jiayu said. I know, they are just finding an excuse to show off their strength in the channel while remaining blameless, Fang Hao said. The other party was not that foolish either, and knew to find an excuse. I heard that the Tanpeng Alliance is quite formidable. I might not be able to handle them, Dong Jiayu said bluntly. With the help of Fang Hao, Dong Jiayu managed 3 cities. However, her focus was not on military development. If targeted, she might not be able to resist. Don't worry, I'm here. They won't be able to cause much trouble. But, Brother Hao, our territories are quite far apart. No worries, just get ready. I'll be there soon. Oh. After ending the chat with Dong Jiayu and ignoring other private chats, after a simple wash and breakfast, Fang Hao began to mobilize his forces. A teleportation portal only lasts for 10 seconds, so the troops he could take needed to be concentrated, not numerous. To ensure his and Dong Jiayu's safety, Fang Hao summoned 3 bone dragons, 6 Nisbets, and 13 skeleton trolls. Demetrija was accompanying him as a hero. Angia was left behind to guard the territory while she slept in. All of them mounted bone dragons. When the demon doll summoned the teleportation portal, the 3 bone dragons immediately charged into the light display. The massive bodies of the bone dragons began to change, as if absorbed by the light, disappearing into it. After 10 seconds, the 3 bone dragons had entered the portal. The next second, they appeared in the center of Dong Jiayu's territory. The sudden appearance of the magnificent bone dragons caused immediate chaos. The guards quickly assembled. Farmers dropped their work and scurried back into their homes in panic. At this point, Dong Jiayu rushed out with her spear in hand and a firearm on her back. She originally thought that Song Yu had already attacked, but when she stepped out, she saw Fang Hao and a large number of skeleton soldiers. The most eye-catching among them was a lizardman in golden armor. Brother Hao, how did you get here so quickly? Your words sound strange. No, I mean, how did you get here so quickly? Just a teleportation spell. So the enemy hasn't attacked yet, right? Fang Hao continued to ask. Dong Jiayu shook her head and said, I've arranged for people to keep an eye on them. They should still be preparing and haven't dispatched troops yet. Knowing the opponent's intentions, Dong Jiayu would naturally not sit idle. She too had arranged for people to keep an eye on the opponent. If the enemy had too many people and Fang Hao could not arrive in time, she would take her people and retreat first, then take back the city in entirety once Fang Hao's people arrived. Now that Fang Hao was here, she had no other concerns and left everything to Fang Hao. Well, since we know the location of their city, let's go straight there. There are quite a few people bedding in the channel. Let's not keep them waiting too long. Huh? Dong Jiayu was somewhat confused. What was Fang Hao talking about? One of the skeleton trolls on the dragon's back jumped off, leaving a space behind. Come on up. Let's go to their territory, Fang Hao continued. Are we heading there directly? Dong Jiayu asked. What else? Fang Hao responded. Oh, answered Dong Jiayu as she climbed onto the bone dragon and settled on its back. She stroked the bones of the dragon's back, her eyes flashing with anticipation. Jiayu, you lead the way, Fang Hao said. Oh, that way. Dong Jiayu pointed in the northwest direction. With a kick, the bone dragon shot straight up into the sky, dashing towards the indicated direction with everyone on its back. With the whistle of the wind buzzing in her ears, Dong Jiayu's face was full of excitement. This was far more thrilling than a roller coaster ride. What would have taken 2 hours to travel by foot was visible within just 10 minutes. Ahead lay the city. She signaled to Fang Hao, confirming that the city was indeed Song Yu's city. All right, let's descend. The 3 bone dragons dived straight down. In the city, Song Yu was checking the reinforcement troops sent by the Alliance members. There were so many people, even including special troops of level 6 and 7. This made Song Yu slightly less worried. The scout evaluated Dong Jiayu's forces and found a few troops of level 5, but most were ordinary human soldiers of levels 2 and 3. Be it in terms of quantity or quality, they couldn't compare with his forces. Moreover, even if Fang Hao departed now, there would be no way for him to arrive so quickly, even if he flew. As long as he captured Dong Jiayu City, he would be the hero of this battle, and when the Alliance dealt with Fang Hao, he would receive the reward he wanted. Just as he was about to leave, the sky suddenly darkened. 3 huge creatures obscured the sky overhead. Before he had time to react, these 3 huge creatures dived down. They spewed out beams of black light, sweeping across the frontline army. Under Song Yu's gaze, the thousands of soldiers from the Alliance began to have their flesh dissolve, shrieking and wailing as their bodies turned into white bones. Then, the 3 bone dragons landed on the ground. Skeleton warriors jumped down from their backs and began to slaughter the remaining soldiers. Song Yu stood dumbfounded, not knowing what to do in the face of this sudden onslaught. Just as he was about to turn and run, he was kicked away, stumbling several times before he regained his footing. When Song Yu saw who had kicked him, his face instantly changed. It was Dong Jiayu, the very target he was about to attack. Dong Jiayu, don't go crazy, we can talk this out. Song Yu, sitting on the ground, began to retreat while pleading. He had thought about how to purchase Dong Jiayu, this attractive woman, once she fell into his hands. What he did not anticipate was the consequence of his defeat. Dong Jiayu did not approach. Instead, Demetrija came forward and, like carrying a small chick, grabbed and threw him to Fang Hao. Do you know who I am? Said Fang Hao. Song Yu shook his head slightly, but a bad feeling had already formed in his heart. My name is Fang Hao. I heard that your Tenpeng alliance is looking for me. Shock and incredulity crossed over Song Yu's face. How could Fang Hao have arrived so quickly? Even by plane, he couldn't have arrived so fast. His eyes unconsciously drifted towards the 3 bone dragons behind him. So, he did have a plane. Upon hearing Fang Hao utter his name, Song Yu wore an expression of disbelief. After the shock wore off, his heart quickly sank. As expected, Fang Hao indeed came to aid Dong Jiayu, and he even arrived astride a bone dragon. A 10th tier bone dragon, and he had even captured his 8th tier orange lizardman. Damn, how could Fang Hao possess such immense power? If he had known Fang Hao was so formidable and quick to act, he wouldn't have agreed to this plan. Even if it meant becoming an elder in the alliance of Tenpeng, he wouldn't dare to provoke Fang Hao. Sadly, it was too late for regrets. He had already chosen to stand against Fang Hao. Brother Hao, Mr. Fang Hao, I was wrong. I didn't recognize your greatness. Quzhai Shang made me do it. I hold no grudge against Miss Dong. Song Yu's face turned pale, falling on his knees, and pleaded loudly. He remembered all too clearly. The individual who provoked Fang Hao had his head chopped off. His photo was broadcasted directly in the area's channel. Thousands of alliance troops were slaughtered, their bodies dragged around by skeleton soldiers, piling up to form a mountain of corpses. He was finished. The only thing he could do now was to beg Fang Hao to spare his life. Song Yu begged loudly, with tears streaming down his face, pleading for Fang Hao to forgive him. Yet Fang Hao showed no reaction at all. The Tenpeng alliance's malice towards him went beyond simple verbal disputes, mobilizing manpower to attack his subsidiary city. If he didn't possess strength or haven't unlocked the demon teleportation skill, Dong Jiayu, a woman, would fall into their hands, the outcome of which was not hard to imagine. If circumstances allowed it, the Tenpeng alliance would unhesitatingly kill him and seize all the resources in his territory. Victors are kings, losers the vanquished. There was no point in pleading for mercy. Fang Hao continued to look at the rather peculiar alliance building in the channel. The structure had 4 large arches, though there was nothing else special about its appearance. Is this the alliance building? Can it teleport me to Yu Tenpeng's location? Fang Hao asked Song Yu. Song Yu stumbled over to explain. It technically can, but the alliance buildings within each territory can be toggled on and off. Only when the local building is activated can alliance members receive aid, and no one else can utilize the building. This news somewhat disappointed Fang Hao. It looked like finding Yu Tenpeng's domain via the alliance building wasn't possible. Yu Tenpeng might not have activated the teleportation in his territory, and even if he had, his group's identities precluded them from using the teleportation device. What's more, the structure might have certain peculiar features that could put him in danger if he attempted to use it. Fang Hao gave up on using the building and continued to question. Do you know where Yu Tenpeng's domain is? I don't. Fang Hao furrowed his brows. Seeing Fang Hao's frown, Song Yu immediately froze in shock and quickly explained. I only just joined the alliance 2 days ago, and the only one who has contacted me is Elder Quzhai Shang. He's also the one who assigned me my tasks. After observing Song Yu's panicked demeanor, it was clear he wasn't lying. If he were truly unyielding, he wouldn't have given Fang Hao Quzhai Shang's name. So you do know the location of Quzhai Shang's domain then? Fang Hao continued. I've been there before. It was in his domain that Quzhai Shang talked to me about this matter. I've never planned to target you or Miss Dong. It was my utmost mistake to be influenced by him. Smack, smack. Just as Song Yu was sobbing loudly, Demetrius slapped him twice, silencing him completely. Even though the orange 8th tier hero had held back, it was still more than Song Yu could bear. He spewed a mouthful of blood and broken teeth, and his eyes rolled back as he lost consciousness. Get his Book of Lords, Fang Hao ordered. Demetrius bent over, unclasped the Book of Lords from Song Yu's waist, and handed it to Fang Hao. After he devoured Song Yu's Book of Lords, he occupied Song Yu's territory, and the map in Song Yu's Book of Lords was synchronized with the map in Fang Hao's Book of Lords. In the southwest corner, there was a certain territory that seemed to belong to Quzhai Shang. He summoned his demon doll and cast a healing spell on Song Yu. Then, he splashed a bucket of cold water on him, and Song Yu woke up almost instantly. The bleeding had stopped, but he'd lost several teeth. When he woke up, he found that his Book of Lords had been devoured by Fang Hao. His expression changed yet again. Is this Quzhai Shang's domain? Fang Hao confirmed once again. Song Yu seemed to hesitate a little, but finally nodded. Yes. HM. Fang Hao nodded, now certain. Swoosh! Demetrija immediately swung his sword, severing Song Yu's neck. His head rolled away, landing several feet away. His eyes were bulging, bearing a look of disbelief as they stared at his headless body. After killing Song Yu, Dong Jiayu's soldiers, who had followed closely behind, arrived. They swiftly took control of the city. All right, everyone mount the bone dragon. Fang Hao issued the next order. Everyone remounted the bone dragon. The demon doll once again cast at demon teleportation. Everyone then stepped into the portal. Through the teleportation portal, Fang Hao and the others had already arrived at Quzhai Shang's domain. Quzhai Shang's domain was considerably better than Song Yu's. As an elder of the Alliance, he had received quite a bit of support recently. The territory was expanding rapidly. With the support of the Alliance members, they had already occupied 3 nearby territories and plundered a large amount of resources, making Quzhai Shang's life increasingly prosperous. When 3 bone dragons carrying skeleton soldiers appeared, it instantly drew the attention of the surrounding soldiers. A mere approach with their weapons was met with the death breath of the bone dragons, reducing them instantly into scattered white bones. Skeleton warriors disembarked from the dragons and began to clear the city guards. With a captured peasant in tow, Fang Hao spoke in a cold voice. Where is your lord, Quzhai Shang? The peasant trembled in fear, his voice quivering. The lord has gone to the tile kiln. And where is this kiln? To the west outside the city, the peasant quickly replied. After releasing the peasant, Fang Hao addressed the crowd. Everyone, there's no need to worry. I'm only here to discuss some matters with your lord. As long as you stay here obediently and avoid touching any weapons, I can assure your safety. Do you understand? Ununderstood, the crowd stuttered in response. Any soldiers attempting resistance or defense had already been eliminated. The only ones left were these timid and fearful peasants. Fang Hao came for Quzhai Shang himself. There was no need to kill all these people. He ordered the skeleton soldiers to guard the people. Then he led the remaining men quickly toward the tile kiln on the west side outside the city. Shortly, Fang Hao arrived at the location of the kiln. There were numerous kilns constructed here, and many workers were bustling about. Not far away, a middle-aged man, surrounded by many people, also noticed Fang Hao and his troop. The sight of the undead army approaching him drained his face of color, and he turned and bolted. Bang! A gunshot rang out, and Dong Jiayu hit his ankle. Quzhai Shang fell to the ground, howling in agony. What a name! Fang Hao praised Dong Jiayu. Firearms are actually not easy to use. They are slow to load, inaccurate, but pack a punch. If fired accurately, they can kill an enemy of higher rank. However, that's if you can fire it accurately. I wanted to fire a warning shot. Didn't mean to hit him, Dong Jiayu said helplessly. Well, seems like he's done too many bad deeds. Even the heavens aren't helping him, Fang Hao justified. Quzhai Shang's guards were eliminated. 2 skeleton trolls dragged him to the crowd as if he were a dead dog, and threw him in front of everyone. Who are you? I'm an elder of Tanpeng Alliance. Don't act rashly. I have tens of thousands of soldiers in the city. You won't benefit from this. Quzhai Shang, clutching his ankle, shouted loudly. Blood was seeping out from between his fingers. Pain was warping Quzhai Shang's face. He continued to issue warnings amidst his whimpers of pain. Quzhai Shang, you swore at me just last night. You can't have forgotten me already. Fang Hao smiled at Quzhai Shang. Quzhai Shang's pupils contracted. You're Fang Hao. No, impossible. How did you get here? They had calculated that Fang Hao's territory should be near Dong Jiayu's. There were several regions between Dong Jiayu and himself. How could Fang Hao possibly be here? And didn't he send Song Yu to kill Dong Jiayu? Did Song Yu die? How could it happen so quickly? Demetrija bent down and snatched the Book of Lords from him. After consuming it, they also found the location of Yu Tanpeng's territory on the map. Fang Hao nodded at Demetrija, hinting something. Swish! Getting Fang Hao's hint, Demetrija swung his swords and severed Quzhai Shang's arms. Blood spurted out from the wounds, dyeing Quzhai Shang red in an instant. As Quzhai Shang was about to let out an even more piercing scream, Demetrija swung his sword again, and the blade flashed across his neck. A head fell from the body, rolling on the ground and finally stopping at a distance. His eyes, still wide open, stared grimly at his city in the distance. Bury him here. Let's go back to the city to rest, Fang Hao said. Demon Doll releases skills by using the energy from its controller. After releasing demon teleportation twice in a row, Fang Hao's spiritual power had also been drained. After burying Qu Zhai Shang, Fang Hao led everyone back to the city. The villagers were still gathered and squatting on the bare ground under surveillance. Fang Hao spoke, "The city has a new ruler now. If you're willing, you can continue living here. I will assign a new city lord for you. If you don't wish to stay, you can leave, and I will provide the necessary provisions for your journey." This place was different from Songyu City. It was quite far from any subsidiary territories. Although Songyu City could be handed over to Dongjiayu, there was a significant distance from both Fang Hao's and Dongjiayu's territories, so a new lord would need to be assigned here later. Hearing Fang Hao's words, the villagers began to discuss among themselves in hushed whispers. Qu Zhai Shang was not a competent lord. He had been heavily exploiting the villagers. In the tile production, a piecemeal work system was established. The territory did not provide food supplies. They had to exchange their productions for it. The more you produce in your work, the more food and living essentials you get. However, often for a family to be well fed, it's a challenging task. The territory Fang Hao now occupies and the undead he leads still cause great worry amongst the people. Just as he finished speaking, many indicated their desire to leave. Fang Hao made no attempt to stop them. "All right, Dongjiayu, take a few people to distribute food to those who want to leave. The rest can take the day off. The food supply will be made available tonight to ensure everyone's well fed. We'll return to work tomorrow. From now on, everyone here will be promised food and warmth." Upon hearing this, some of those who were about to leave squatted down again. Apparently, the promise of food and warmth made them willing to stay and monitor the situation. "Okay." Dong Jiayu opened the warehouse and distributed food to those who were leaving before exiting the area. Those who remained also received enough food, although they were all sent back to their dwellings to eat and were not allowed to leave unless it was necessary. Fang Hao handed out some roasted cakes. He was checking the chat within the channel while having his lunch. "What's going on? It's noon already, but there's no news from either side. Damn. Dong Jiayu hasn't been killed, has she? I think something must have happened to people from the Alliance of Tenpeng, otherwise, they would have released the news. Huh. Song Yu has just left. Could a little lady resist our Alliance army? Right. Not to mention that little lady. Should we find out where Fang Hao is based, we'll level his territory, even scatter his ashes." The people of the Tenpeng Alliance were arrogantly powerful, and the others dared not say much, fearing that they had chosen the wrong side and might face the retaliation of people from the Tenpeng Alliance. On the other side, Yu Tenpen was sitting by the bed, looking sullen. He had slept until now, accompanied by the two lady lords of the Alliance last night, and had just gotten up. He had expected to wake up to news of having taken over Dong Jiayu's territory. But now he hadn't received any news. Just now he had chatted privately with Qu Zhai Shang and Song Yu. However, their chat threads had become grayed out, and the messages he sent out indicated those two players no longer existed. This made Yu Tenpeng's face even more drab. Despite his great confidence in his alliance, a bad omen sprouted in his heart. Why would these two people disappear? Unless they were dead. In the local channel, everyone was still heatedly discussing, and the members of his alliance were boasting that Fang Hao, the first killer, was nothing compared to the Tenpeng Alliance. But him, the alliance hierarch, was already sweating profusely, and his hand holding the Book of Lords began to tremble uncontrollably. He didn't even have time to brush his teeth or wash his face, promptly rushing out of the Lord's mansion to gather all the soldiers and surround his location. He had an ominous feeling that he had provoked someone he shouldn't have. After lunch, Fang Hao opened another bottle of mental potion and drank it down. "Nisbet, you stay here and manage things for now. I will send someone to replace you later," Fang Hao ordered. He also recruited 200 human soldiers from the barracks to follow Nisbet's dispatch. Nisbet belonged to the Undead Nisbet, a Tier 10 troop. He was intimidating enough, but his managerial skills were inadequate, so Fang Hao would send others to take over managing the city later. "Yes, sir." After sorting things out here, Fang Hao once again cast demon teleportation. He led his entourage into the beam of light. A dark red portal appeared in the center of Yu Tenpeng's territory. Just as Fang Hao's vision was restored, he heard a low growl. "Release the arrows, shoot quickly." Whiz whiz. Yu Tenpeng had already prepared, and a large number of arrows poured down on the spot where the light curtain appeared.